All right, so we're going live. I think we're going live. If you're out there in the middle of YouTube land and anybody can tell me real quick, let's try this real quick. I'm going to try to refresh my browser and see if the sound comes through. Life is a glitch.
You're coming through on...
Am I coming through?
You're coming through on YouTube.
All right. Coming through on YouTube. Wow, that's been...
I got you now, too.
That's been wild. All right, guys. Sorry about that. So, nothing like 15 minutes into the show. What time's that 2 o'clock show start today? So, welcome to episode 29 of Glitch Talk, the nation's leading show where we deal with glitches in real time on the air. It's all glitches all the time, 24/7. This is CoCoTALK episode, what are we, 29? I don't remember. Did I say 29?
Yep, 29, yep.
It's 29, episode 29, and this is the Tandy Assembly Wrap-Up Show. Yay! And we're going to try this again. I'm going to try to introduce Steve Batson. Steve Batson, how are you? Since you're our first-time joiner to the show, how are you, Steve?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to join and have some of the fun with you guys.
Hey, it's not a party without you. So yeah, good to have you here. So where do you hail from? Where are you currently residing, Steve?
I live in California near Sacramento.
Okay. And this is the interesting thing about, our little retro community. I feel like I know you. I've seen you posting on dozens of groups. So obviously we've never met before, and that's
right.
kind of the cool things about sometimes coming to these events is you get to meet people in person. When did you start in what we now call retro computing?
That's where I actually got my start in computers. I started with a CoCo 1, the original one, and then I hacked the heck out of that sucker, memory and all kinds of stuff, and then I got out of it for a little while, and then I decided to get back, so I had sold my stuff, so I had to buy new stuff, and that was separate too. Right.
And what do you own now in your retro collection?
Well, you can probably see some of it behind me. There's a Dragon right behind me, and then there's a CoCo 3 right next to that, and MC10, and I've got an original gray CoCo that is boxed up right now, and a couple of CoCo 2s. They all work.
Yeah.
They're boxed
up. Commodore monitor too?
Yeah, I got a Commodore monitor that I some stuff too.
Is that the Ed Snyder upgrade to your MC10 back there? That little white board in the back?
The MC10. Well, okay, yeah, that's the memory upgrade.
Yeah.
And then I've got his composite upgrade in there as well, so I had to take the system apart and pull the desolder stuff it in.
Nice little collection. What do you do with all of these retro machines right now?
Right now, not a whole lot of anything. I'm mostly just playing games and stuff.
Yeah.
Time has been pretty tight, so I'm kind of sporadic in my activities with the CoCo stuff, but I do have plans to do more programming type stuff.
Cool. Well, it's nice to see him on display. I think sometimes that's the challenge is when you have these toys is where do you play with them? Where do you put them? Because they do seem to take up space sometimes. Very cool. Well, we're glad to have you with us here for the first time. We've got a nice panel here. I'll go around the rest of the room. So Jay Searle is here, who was also at Tandy Assembly. Paul Thayer is here. Brett Gordon, also Tandy Assembly attendee, was here. And exhibitor. And Grant Leighty is here. John Linville, one of the founders of Tandy Assembly. John T. Robbs is here. David Ladd, Lord of the Floppy, an international podcasting interview star, is with us. Ron Delvaux is here. Mark Overholser is here. Richard Lorbieski, also attendee and exhibitor of Tandy Assembly. And L. Curtis Boyle is here, all the way from the UK. Ciaran Anscomb is here. And we have Myro, also founder of Tandy Assembly and creative content creator of the CoCo Crew podcast. We have the madman himself, Simon Jonassen, hailing from Denmark right now. And last but certainly not least, from down under, we have Nick Marentes. Good day, Nick. How are you?
Ease of use.
Ease of use.
Windows 10 version today.
No three greater words have ever been spoken. And in the live chat we have with us, who do we have with us? We have Nick Marotta is in here, said Life's a Glitch. Retro Innovations is here. Who else is in the live chat right now? Okay, okay. Nick Marotta. Hi, Nick. How are you? Retro Innovations is here. Sixy is here. Karen also in the chat. Paco Otakte, one of David's personalities that he's aware of. And yeah, okay, cool. Life's a glitch, Nick says. Retro Innovation says, yay. I'm assuming that means because the sound's working. Richard Lorbieski says, I'm back. All right, we're here. So the main thing we want to talk about is Tandy Assembly wrap-up show. Since we have a couple of the founders and coordinators, Myro and John Linville, how would you guys summarize this past weekend?
Wow.
Big success. Fantastic.
Yeah. Great.
Definitely a big success. The attendance was way beyond my imagination. I didn't hear very many complaints. They were all kind of the kind of things that you expect to hear, just this and that sort of things. And everyone seemed pretty happy. Like I said, big attendance, big excitement. The bank looks pretty good. Good. So definitely a success from all angles, as far as I can tell.
Okay, very good. And how did the bomb threat sales go? Did you sell out or nearly sell out of all the new Rick Adams game?
Yeah, I have 2 or 3 packages left. One is spoken for.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to walk away with 1 or 2 just in case. Right. Somebody wants one. But pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely seemed to be TRS-80 heavy as far as the crowd. And that's not a bad thing. It's Tandy Assembly, and we're all family here. But I felt like us CoCoNets were a slight minority as far as what our favorite system was. But there was no feeling of contention or competition or no clickiness or anything like that. As far as the social chemistry, it was one big happy family. But you could tell by some of the speaking engagements, that the TRS-80 speakers, especially your 3 big wigs, your heavy hitters, those were packed houses. But yeah, it was neat.
How many spend hours watching reruns?
Reruns of the live stream?
Yeah.
I
mean,
I've
it took quite a while to actually kind of catch up with everybody being there.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Definitely. What was the total head count? It was somewhere around 80 or so, do you think?
83.
83. Not bad.
And the speakers were intentionally Z80 heavy because it was the 40th anniversary of the TRS-80. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it was good. Those 3 great, or 4 great keynotes and everything. All the presentations were good. But some really, some industry leaders there. It was really good stuff.
And a few of them are also CoCo, we're involved with the CoCo too, like Scott and Lance and a few others. So, I mean, it was a nice general, broad set of guests you guys had, and some really impressive stories that came out of that too. It was really, really cool to watch.
Yeah, I was pretty pleased. I mean, we had kind of just a handful of the regular CoCo Fest attendees, but we still had some other CoCo people that I'd never met before. Like you said, the tables may have leaned a little away from the CoCo, but there were plenty of CoCo tables there.
Sure.
And we did have the Tandy 1000 there along the back wall, and a fair number of the Z80 stuff was there. I don't know. I was pretty happy with the mix. And like I said, I was kind of happy that we didn't see just all the CoCo Fest people just come over. We were the size we were, and yet we didn't take that much from CoCo Fest.
Right.
So that's pretty exciting. So.
And do you have a lot of commitment from the TRS-80 and Tandy side of people that they want to come back to the show next year?
Definitely. People seemed like they would be coming back. Everybody was very enthused all around, no matter what they brought.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Neil Blanchard just joined us.
Yep. Nutty guy. Definitely a lot of people expressed interest in having another event. Of course, there's always people with different ideas about, we should have it in Kokomo, Indiana. We should have it in Arizona, or we should have it here, there, or whatever.
I'm up for Pennsylvania.
Fairbanks, Alaska gets my vote.
There we go.
So I'd say we're not exactly locked down on where we're having it, but if you want us to move it, you probably better have some offering up some volunteering, at least for the logistics.
Yeah, no, it was a neat location. All in all, I think the event was great. The room was big. I was just kind of looking at the floor plan, right? So I still kind of have. I'll just pull it up here real quick. This is so this is the map, right? And you can kind of see here from the exhibit floor, the the floor was pretty full. I'm not even sure how you guys are going to squeeze anybody in next year, unless do they have bigger rooms, or are the rooms able to be expanded?
Well, they do have additional rooms.
Okay.
If it gets much bigger, we may look at a different venue.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. So the floor plan worked out really good. I just think the whole thing was good. All the presentations were good. What am I doing here, dude? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to move windows around. I'm not succeeding here with Skype. We're reaching critical mass. George Phillips has just joined us too, who did the TrisVid presentation. Hey, George, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
And yeah, no, so it was definitely a great event. And since George, this is your first time being on CoCoTALK, you want to? I'll put you on the spot. We'll get a little bit of a short life history, like when you started in retro computing, when it was new, and what you're doing now.
Oh, I was a original teenager that got entranced with the TRS-80 back in the late 70s. Got back into playing around and programming it in the 90s and wrote an emulator and did a bunch of other stuff, and here I am now.
And here you are now. And your presentation on TrisVid was really cool. I liked seeing full motion video on a TRS-80 Model 4P. Is quite impressive. It's really neat what somebody can do with it when when they put their mind to it. And it was a really cool project. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
One thing about that TRS-Vid presentation that we haven't talked, but you might agree that I had a similar project, and ultimately it was almost shocking how much the audio playback takes over the whole project. and sitting and watching the TRS-Vid presentation, it seemed like that you could probably say that about that project as well, that very much of that project was built around playing back the audio as well as the video. And if it was a silent project, it might have been a lot easier.
That's absolutely true. I only had one bit of audio, and it was sort of worse, but it's a really demanding mistress.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can screw up the video a lot easier, and nobody really notices as much as if you screw up the audio, though, you'll know right away.
Yeah, it's less forgiving, huh?
Definitely.
What so I'm not even fully aware of how the TRS-80 generates sound, because on the CoCo was designed to make sound, and I know enough that it I know now by listening to podcasts and stuff. There's the DAC, or digital to audio conversion, but it had an actual sound output through its RF port. What was the way to get sound on the TRS-80? Because I remember, like Dancing Devil, there was like a little speaker that I think that was plugged into a cassette port. You were kind of like hacking, generating noise in some weird hacky way to even get sound out of a TRS-80?
That's right. You'd get it through the cassette port, and in the original, you would actually take your cassette cable and plug it in differently to your cassette recorder and get sound that way, and then eventually you actually got a little speaker to attach to it. Your first third-party peripheral, probably.
Yeah.
And it's only got it's got 3 levels of output, although practically speaking, who knows what to do with the third one.
Yeah, Nick can probably speak to this too, because he first started developing on the TRS-80 Model 1 and 3 himself and did a lot of sound routines. So
yeah, it was basically a 1-bit sound.
Yeah.
Similar to what we have on the CoCo in the 1-bit sound mode, just toggling the output of the cassette on and off. You just have to write software to vary the speed of that, and there's your sound.
So is it almost like sending serial data, like you're fooling the computer to think you're writing to tape, and depending on the bit pattern, you can change the pitch of the sound or something like that?
Basically, yeah, that's all it was. It's very Apple II-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, very very similar.
Yeah, they had 1-bit sound as well. So
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, no, it was a cool little project, and for some reason, I think things look cooler when they have been retrograded and they've got the grain and the pixelation to them and stuff like that. It's like it seems like it takes more work to make it look crappier, you know, and it's that degraded 80s 8-bit, you know, look and pixelation stuff that just looks so cool, you know. Very cool project. So for those of you who are here in the panel now who weren't able to attend, did any of you catch the live stream or the replays? I know Ron mentioned he did. Anybody else catch any of the streaming from the event?
I caught some of it.
I've watched a couple of them. I haven't had a lot of time to go through all of them yet.
Yeah. What was your impression of like the overall audio video quality? Because that's something I think I always struggle with, trying to capture a room in the kind of ambience and acoustics and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it varied a bit too, depending where you position the mic and stuff. And somebody made a suggestion if you could possibly tap right into the soundboard that the presenters are using their mics through to go to the speakers and split it to yours. That'd be the best way to do it if you could. Because you sometimes pick up a bit of room noise, or if the mic's a little bit off to the side and it's picking up somebody that's talking on the side, you hear these other conversations going on over top of the speaker. But once you move the mic right on the tables, it usually worked pretty good.
Still, there's a lot of phase-in, not really phase-in, but fade as the speaker walks back and forth.
Yeah.
I was too dumb to speak into Steve's. So I stood behind it about half the time.
It's really impossible to get a perfect setup with that thing, and
no, you'd have to plug it directly into whatever mic they're actually using.
Well, yeah, and then there would just be an exuberant amount of cables that would need to be run. I would need a whole new type of AV input that would go into my laptop that could take the pass through from the output of a sound console. You know, it's going to be hard to get it perfect, but I'm sure there are some things that could be done to improve it. One of my side projects will be to try to isolate the audio and maybe run it through Audacity and run some filters and stuff and see if I can't clean it up a bit, and then just reprocess the videos to make them a little cleaner. But yeah, that I'll put my thinking cap on, and I don't know if Myro will come up with any ideas between now and a next event or something like that too. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but those are the things that just bother me. It's just that
One other thing, the screen, when you guys took video of the screen, it was 3/4 white.
Yeah,
you couldn't really see any screen.
That's another issue with using a single webcam. It can't focus on all the variety of lighting. It can't, it just can't do it. I could have possibly ran another camera, but where all the tables and chairs were, it was kind of hard to do. So we did the best we could do. I think the most important part was that you got to experience the event. You got to at least hear what the people were saying, hear the questions. I will try to do some post-production, kind of like what I did for Rick Adams, and maybe superimpose some slides. I've kind of reached out and asked some people to send me their slides. So as my time permits, I'll try to do some of those too. And have a
it was definitely legible. I mean, you did a good job considering the circumstances you're under, and you solved the video whiteout problem that one time when somebody knocked the camera so it faced the ceiling, so they didn't have to worry about looking at slides.
Yeah. The best advice is you need to be there. It looked a hell of a lot better when you were sitting down in that room. Okay, Nick Marotta in the chat says, as a home viewer, I thought it was great. Okay, that's good to hear. Jim Brain was saying, Jim Brain was in the exhibit room and he was watching the presentations from there while they were going on. Yeah, so he did say people need to hold the mics closer. You can't, you can't control what people are going to do. All you can try to do is capture it the best you can. I think it went okay. I think some were better than others. I think the first one we did, which happened, unfortunately, was Don French. Yeah, I didn't have the camera. I had the camera back in the back of the room where the laptop was. The laptop was in the back of the room, and a lot of people were saying he was hard to hear. So I did get some extension cords and try to move my microphone closer for future speakers. So I don't know how good that one is. I haven't played that one back.
Yeah, probably your best option, Steve, is like they said, just try to intercept everything before it actually gets out. You know what I mean? But that'd be some sort of hardware involved, I'm sure.
Right. So
you can always get You can always get a wireless mic, tight clip mic, and give that to the presenter.
Well, they did. They had that. The presenters had a wireless mic that they either used or didn't use effectively, but it was like my microphone had to capture everything, and it was capturing it from the room ambience. And so depending on where my mic was and other things would affect how the recording came through.
Hey, Steve?
Yeah.
It's Neil here.
Hey, Neil Blanchard.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. If I could just chime in here, I just want to say quick two things. First of all, on behalf of the other Tandy Assembly organizers, thank you very much for doing the video stream.
My pleasure.
I can't give you a big enough thanks for that. And also a bit of feedback. My friend was watching from home. He's not even a CoCo guy, and he said it was phenomenal. Like he felt he was there.
Okay, good.
He's a big YouTuber. Right, so he knows a lot about video production, and he said your work was fantastic.
Oh wow, that's
the only complaint he had was what someone else was mentioning about the actual projector. You couldn't see the slides; it went white. But that's tough, like you said, to correct that. So
yeah, well that's cool. Well, thanks for the feedback.
I want to give you the feedback because he said it was just amazing. So he was even texting my phone during the event. So it was kind of cool. Felt like he was right there.
Very, very cool.
I can't thank you enough for doing that for us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
That was huge.
For I don't know how many weeks or months, we've been just like going over the website saying, hey, we're excited about Tandy Assembly, and look, this is who it's going to be, and here's our speakers, and here's our exhibitors. And so for the longest time, it was just lip service as we were talking about it, and now we were there. For me, I want to say it was an experience. It was a complete experience, and it was a very positive experience. So I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you guys did it. My first big road trip too. So it's probably the furthest I've driven in my lifetime, 1,000 miles, and so that was kind of cool. Yeah. So that was an experience. The road trip was an experience. Having a hotel mate was an experience, and but the event itself was a really, really good experience. This is only my third event, so my pool to draw from is somewhat shallow, having been to 2 CoCo Fests and this. But yeah, this was definitely, as good as any CoCo Fest I had been to. I've never been to a VCF, but I would imagine you guys have all been to a lot of shows, so you were probably able to say, well, this is what we like and this is what we don't like, and you kind of had some your own observations to kind of hopefully infuse into this, what you guys did here.
Sure. And how about that Roosters, huh?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Was there? I don't know how many times I ate there. It's convenient location. I didn't even know they had pizza until that guy brought some in that night, and I was like, "Wow, this is really good pizza." It's a wing place that had really good pizza. So, yeah, not bad. I didn't try the pub food at all. Anybody eat at the pub there? That's in-house.
Patrick's? No, I didn't try that one.
No, I didn't either. No.
Yeah. So there's a few choices. It's good. I didn't.
It must be good. It's constantly hopping.
Yeah. It was funny. There was a weird, awkward moment where I think it was Sunday night. We're sitting in the lobby, a handful of us, and this woman comes walking out of the pub, and we weren't sure if she was drunk or what. She might have been a little bit drunk, but she sees all of us sitting there, and she's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Are you having a party?" And we're looking at her like, "Wait a second, are you talking to us?" Or I was like, "We're not used to women talking to us, and you clearly have mistaken us for someone else."
You were clearly inebriated at this point.
And then she's like, "Okay, you're not going to talk to me." She just kept on walking. So everybody kind of stared. Oh, that was fun. But yeah, it was a great experience, I felt. I think, so who else was there? But Grant, what was your, and Brett and everybody. So Grant, how did you like it?
I loved it. I had a great time. I think the enthusiasm was very high. It was very well organized. I definitely will be going next year, that's for sure.
Did you get to spend?
Good to hear.
Yeah, did you spend a little bit more time on the exhibit side?
Unfortunately, I spent more time over on the presentation side, but I did get to make around to the tables, but not as much as I would like to.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just one of those things I'll learn. I'll try to be more selective next year between the two. But there were a lot of good speeches, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always a balancing act, it seems.
And I really did enjoy the cash bar, too, that evening, because it really made a great social environment to mingle with everybody.
Definitely. If the only way it could have been better if it was open bar. So we'll try working that next year. You said the bank was good, right? So
or have more women wander in, half inebriated too.
We'll just have it at Patrick's Pub next year.
There you go.
But I do have one question for everybody that went. Did anybody bring home anything really exciting?
Ooh.
Upgrades done there, wasn't there?
Yeah. I had upgrades done while I was there. I was able to pick up somebody's spare CoCo SDC, so that was nice. But that was about the extent of mine, I think.
Well, after hearing all the commercials on the CoCo Crew podcast, I finally got myself a CM8 monitor.
That's great.
So, yeah, I've been wanting a CM8 for a while. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, one guy walked away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the auction was going good, but it was at 3:00 or something that auction started, and I hadn't had lunch or anything yet, so it's like my stomach said, "Dude, it's time to go eat." So I just let the cameras roll and went over to Roosters and had some wings. I figured
Did you get your CM8 from there?
No, I actually got my CM8 at just about the last minute. Ron Klein was getting ready to leave, and he was carrying it under his arm, and it still had a price tag on it. I go, "Dude, were you going to sell that?" He's like, "Yeah," but I go, "Well, I'll take it off you." So yeah, it's like everybody was leaving and packing up, and I got that last minute deal. So
actually, one thing I wanted to ask everybody that was there, either as as a sponsor, attendee, organizer, etc. What was your favorite part of the show?
Meeting people.
Yeah, I would say the same. My favorite part was just getting around, meeting, putting, I won't say faces, but putting personalities to faces and people I've met. That was probably the best part.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, anybody want to hear my really good Boise Pete story?
Yeah,
sure.
Of course.
Sure.
Always want to hear that.
But first of all, Boise he's a big man. I won't say, I guess big's the wrong word. Tall, very almost like a lumberjack looking guy, which he's somewhat imposing. But I was over talking to Jim Brain about his upgrade and stuff, and really wasn't talking to Boise. He was just kind of standing there listening. And I walked away. I went over to the other side of the room. I was doing something. He says, "Jay," I'm like, "Yeah." And he says, Boise Pete introduces himself, and he's talking, and he's like, so, ask me questions, whatever. He's like, "Have we met before?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so." He says, "What's your last name?" And I told him, Searle. He says, "Jay Searle." He says, "I know that name." I'm like, "Well," I said, "I know I've never met you before." I said, "You might be online, maybe been on CoCoTALK and saw it or whatever." And he's like, "No, I'm not sure." So we're talking, getting into what he does for a living, which is pretty impressive for anybody who knows what he does. But anyway, he goes, and he's like kind of talking to me, but looking on his phone at the same time. And I notice he's on Amazon. I'm like, well, I guess he's going to shop while we're talking or whatever, right? And so that was a little strange. And he goes, "That's why I remember. That's why I know your name." I'm like, "What?" And he shows me. And when he put out his book, I gave him a 3-star review on Amazon. So he says, "That's why." And now the funny part about it is, I grabbed his phone and I looked at it. And I'm like, so this is like August of 2014. So he remembered my name from a 3-star review from 3 years ago. So that tells you, number one, either he really, really was upset, or he just has a really good memory for things. I think it was probably a little bit of both. But anyway, we talked about it, and he wanted feedback on why I gave him that 3-star or whatever. But anyway, we had a really good conversation, really good guy. And then
he was great on the game show.
Yeah, he was.
I pushed him into that. I said, "You got to go do that." I said, "You're the only CoCo guy here that can do it." And then the funny part was, so he goes up to do the game show, and he was half a sheet to the wind or whatever at the time, but he didn't win. And I walked up and I grabbed him by the front of his shirt and I said, "Hey, Boise." He says, "What?" I said, "Now you're a 2-star." So that was a good conversation, but yeah, he's a pretty impressive guy. I was really good talk with him. So
that's cool. Yeah.
So now I'm curious, why did you only give it a 3-star review?
Well, when he asked me on the spot, I was like, "Man, that was 3 years ago." But I think what I told him, I think the reason I did that was because the first 3/4 to 2/3 of the book was really good. It was really in depth. It tracked along really well, and then I felt like the last bit of the book was just kind of almost like an afterthought, like it wasn't really well fleshed out. And the funny part, he said to me, he goes, "Yeah, you're kind of right." He said some of the people that we wanted to interview for that part of the book were either not alive anymore, or they just didn't have access to. So he said they were kind of pulling not from a lot of places and didn't have a lot of information, but they wanted to include it just to kind of, fill the entire arc of the product, but didn't have a whole lot there. So he kind of agreed with me somewhat actually on that point. But that was my biggest complaint about the book, was that it just felt like the last part of it was not as, I won't say it was bad, but it wasn't as well done as the first part of the book.
Well, the problem is we're living out the rest of the book.
Well, that's true. That is part. That's what he said. He said, he almost felt like, looking into doing a second part, or not a second part, but like another book on, current, what do you want to say, CoCo lore, I guess, if you want to call it that. But he said there's just he don't have the time, and there's not a whole lot of publisher interest in it. So I don't know if that you'll oversee that from him anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing how much has happened since I found out about that book. It almost seems like there's already another book in what's going on in the community.
Yeah, I had said to him, I don't know if how many of you guys are looking at Apple stuff too, but I kind of put my fingers in a little bit of everything. But there's a book out there, an Apple book, that talks about, it's written towards current peripherals and whatever is that are available for the Apple II stuff. So I said maybe a book, in that direction. But then, we got in the conversation about, publishers and whatever. He said there's just not a lot of interest in that sort of thing, because it is somewhat of a niche. So
yeah, that's probably where things like podcasts and YouTube and blogs are going to carry that on.
Right.
And I think that's where people who are interested in that are probably accustomed to. Okay, Mark is holding something up. Hold on one second. What do you got there, Mark?
That's what I'm talking about, Mark.
The new Apple II User's Guide. That's funny. The new Apple II User's Guide.
And it's very well done book on.
Oh wow, that's what she said. But yeah, that is a thick book.
Is there a lot of pictures?
Wow. Don't remember. Why, you need pictures, or your picture guy?
I don't know if you heard the question, Mark, but is there a lot of pictures in it? And Mark, I think you're muted.
Yep, I am. A few.
Yeah.
A lot of text.
Yeah, a lot of text. There's pictures of the CCFA or CFFA they have in there, pictures of that and stuff. But it's a pretty good book. I got it probably about a year ago. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's this is my only retro system, and this is all kind of new to me. And I'm impressed with things like the CoCo SDC and all these projects. But there are a lot of systems that have things like we do, and in some cases even more. Like the TRS-80's got fully functional Ethernet stuff. You look at all the stuff that they're doing with the Tris Vid and the Tris Wiki and the Dropbox clients and all these things where you're getting on the internet. I know we have the ability to do that through DriveWire, but I don't know how much that's being exploited right now. And actual physical Ethernet is I know there's things out there, but that might be kind of cool to get some Ethernet and more Bluetooth connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity, through things like that.
Jim Brain does have a Ethernet module, but it's a direct wire, which I'd be more interested in some sort of wireless. But
yeah. So I'm hoping some of those things will come. But yeah. So and listening to some of the podcasts, one of the more recent floppy days where Randy Kindig had interviewed a bunch of people from one of the VCFs and is hearing all the different projects that are going on for like the TI-99 and the Amiga and all these other systems. It seems like all these retro systems have this resurgence of lots of really cool high-tech hardware things that you can add to your old system. So that seems to be going around in pretty much all the circles, and I guess that's good. It keeps the community alive, keeps the machines able to be used in a modern setting and stuff. So
the other problem is a lot of that stuff is really hard to get. Like for the Apple, the Apple IIe family, the expanded memory cards are kind of limited. So there's actually a couple different places that are making replacements of the same size or larger in RAM. So
I've done a lot of Telnet with my CoCo in the past. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Brett's doing quite a bit with CoCo networking between the global thermal nuclear war and probably physics as well. Brett, you've been quiet now. How was your experience with Tandy Assembly?
I loved it. You can't beat something that's in your backyard, basically.
No. Oh, nice.
And
Yeah, he was one of the lucky ones that way.
Yeah, it was a big, half-hour drive for me. A beautiful weekend for traveling.
A big half-hour drive.
Where do you live?
I'm in Lancaster,
Where do you
Ohio.
live?
I'm in Lancaster,
okay.
Ohio, so I'm about halfway between Columbus and Chillicothe, Ohio. So close.
I used to live in Toledo.
Oh yeah, Toledo. Just through there a couple weeks ago.
Very, very neat. And so we need to mention. I think I don't know if there was an award ceremony for Tandy Assembly because it was the first one. But if 2 awards need to be given, one being for traveling the most distance, and the other being for the best dressed, they would both go to the same person, and that would be Ian Maverick. I don't know if you guys saw the Mav there the whole time, but the guy's in a 3-piece suit for the whole weekend, and he flew in from Australia, so I think he's got us all beat on miles. Although the other guy from New Zealand, too, probably give or take same amount of mileage there. But that was really cool to see him after hearing him on the Trash Talkers, never meeting him before. To meet him in person is an interesting guy, as all these guys are. So that was pretty cool.
The guy from New Zealand was Philip Avery.
Yeah.
And I got the honor of being the first Tandy assembler to meet Ian because I picked him up at the airport. I wasn't expecting a guy in a suit. So I took a long time.
Yeah. So
you guys did tell him it was casual, right?
Oh, and George is wearing his Tandy Assembly T-shirt there, representing. Looking good there, George.
Yeah, I haven't changed it for a week.
Is it your lucky shirt now? You're never going to wash it?
That's right. You got it.
Stand up so we can see it.
Yeah. Who did the artwork for that?
That was Jim O'Keefe did it.
Okay, so he did the artwork, and I know he produced them too. So is he like a graphic artist or something, or?
Yeah. Well, he's not a graphic artist, but I think he just has a knack for doing up these shirt designs.
Yeah,
looks like my garage.
He also did the one for CoCo Fest, the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Hey,
there it
you
is.
guys, what do you know about Brother Jeremy? Speaking of dressing funny or different, did he pass away, or is he still around? Or
no, he's still around as far as I know. He got promoted to be the head of his order or something like that. So he's been doing a lot of work, in other sites.
But he was a CoCo user, right?
What's that?
He used the color computer pretty much, didn't he?
Oh yeah, back in the day at least. More recently, I understand it for political reasons, he apparently has renounced his U.S. citizenship.
Now, is that false news or is that real news?
As far as I know, it's real news.
Okay.
And so he will not be returning to the U.S. Anytime soon, is my understanding. Now, he can represent himself if he wants to, but that's what I heard.
Okay.
One good thing is this CoCo group seems to be apolitical.
Yeah, that is Brendan's. Okay, Brendan, you're not a contact. Can somebody let Brendan know that he needs to add me as a contact? I'm not sure if you can hear me, Brendan, but you're trying to call me and you're not a contact with me. So, here he is. Brendan Donahe, he sent me a contact request. Okay, now here he is. I'll try to add him back to the group call. There he goes.
Oh man, sweet.
Okay, Brendan Donahe, do you read me? He's coming in. So Brett had the shortest distance, so there should be an award for that too. For that long, drawn-out 30-minute drive. Rick Adams is not with us too. Did Rick drive the whole way, or did he fly? He did drive, right?
He drove his car there, yeah.
All right.
He's still on his way home.
Yeah, no, he's home. He's been there. He is. There's Brendan Donahe. How are you, Brendan?
Doing all right. How about you?
Good. We're talking about Tandy Assembly.
Nice.
Were you there?
I was there.
Yes. Speaking of scoring big things at the show, I brought home a CoCo VGA. Nice.
Oh
product.
man, what a product that is. And I remember Michael Brandt was saying, "Yeah, I got mine set up and I had it on my table." And then Myro came by and saw it and says, "Oh, I got to get one of these."
Yeah, and then I followed suit.
Yeah.
I saw how clean that video was.
Oh my God!
It's set up. I was sold. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that CoCo VGA is as clean and pretty as David Ladd is. I swear to God, it is so.
Speaking of that, now we need the Type A version of the board.
I didn't even know Dave was here. Where's he hiding?
He's been.
I'm always hiding. You just don't need to see me.
Dave didn't want to be on video because he didn't want to outclass the rest of us.
Yeah. He's back there fixing floppies while he's multitasking. So.
That's Sir David to you guys.
Sir David Ladd, as heard on the CoCo Crew podcast, who's been fully legitimized.
There he is.
Unlike this illegitimate show here. He got promoted from The View to the News magazine. So
whatever, Steve.
So speaking of, so we'll go back to Boise stories for just a second. And Jay, you could tell them what you said to me when you first met me, Jay.
Well, I just walked into the lobby and Steve walks up, and obviously I knew it was Steve because I see him on the internet all the time. But I'm like, wow, you're really tall. Like I didn't expect him to be that tall. He goes like, yep, I've always been this tall.
I don't.
It's just kind of funny because for whatever reason, whenever you see him, for me anyways, whenever I see him here on CoCoTALK and on his videos, he just, I guess the camera angle, whatever it is, I just, and not that he's super tall. He's a normal height guy. It was
you
funny.
thought I
I'm
was
like, wow,
smaller.
really tall.
Yeah. That was the funny story was when I think it was, maybe it was Scott Adams when he said he got to meet George Takei, and he goes, I kept looking at him and I kept saying, man, his head looks so big, and not because his head was big, but because I was used to seeing him on my little television. I thought that was funny. Well, I did. You have your Boise story. I tempted fate in the lobby, and Boise is, he's a full size guy, and I tempted fate by calling him Bo Pete. I said, "Oh, is this Bo Pete?" He goes, "No, no," because I remember him saying, "I'm going to body slam the first guy who calls me that." And you don't want to be body slammed by Boise Pete. I can tell you that.
He can do it too. He's a big boy.
So that was good.
So to tickle his belly, he'll calm down.
Is that a new version of Touch the Heron?
I'm not touching that
one. Tickle the belly, touch the heron. That's all kinds of things going on at these events here.
and Boise just flew in from Europe right before the show too, didn't he?
Yeah, he had just, I don't remember where, but he said he had just come back. Yeah, so.
Yeah, he saw Simon.
Yeah, Simon, you got to see Boise, right, Simon?
Is that him calling in right now?
I went to see him.
Yeah. Very cool.
So.
That's where they make chewing tobacco, right, Copenhagen?
You American.
Wow.
Is that anywhere near the town of Skull, too?
Yeah, right next to Hawkins. Or, what was the other one? Yeah, Hawkins.
And Boise, not Boise, hello Boise, but Simon, we're glad to see that we got your demo running at Tandy Assembly. And you sent me the disc. I think I've got it saved, so when we get a little bit of time, we'll be happy to show off Simon's Tandy Assembly demo, which was very cool to see.
Where is Simon?
Simon's right here. Simon, where are you, Simon?
There he is.
There's Simon. So yeah, very cool stuff. Very, very cool stuff. So yeah, it was a great event. It's kind of like what we're doing now. When you just get people together and you're just kind of talking about the things that you love, it's a good time. I almost think that if there was another event, even a CoCo Fest, I'm thinking that as much as those speakers were great, you almost kind of, I'm thinking there should be an event that is really more just purely social. And would people still come for that, or is there like a need to have that draw of the big gun to come see, or would you think people would come just to hang out like we're doing right now?
Does Glenside still have their CoCo picnic? Because that was kind of what that was.
They have that every year.
Doing it. Yeah, I think they're still doing it. I see it in the newsletter. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, the speakers weren't a huge deal. I was there to see the vendors, meet some people, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, the speakers were nice. Like I went to see, was it Don French was the keynote? That was real interesting, and a bunch of other ones. But for me, it was more the interaction and that sort of thing.
I mean, I think there's value-added content by having it, but it's for me, I always have a hard time finding balance between visiting those and doing the social aspect of it. You know, it just never seems to be enough time.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to have the exhibit hall open like multiple hours beyond what the speakers' schedules are, so that people can get a chance to go through and see all the vendors with time to go through and talk to them and stuff, as opposed to running them both roughly the same start time, the same end time, and then you're trying to guess, should I jump to a speech or should I go to see the vendors this time? And then you heard you missed something fantastic at one of the speakers, and vice versa. I didn't see this thing on the show floor because I didn't have time. So I don't know if there's any set way.
Well,
to
I mean,
fix
it was really impressive the amount of presentations they were able to squeeze into the 2 days, and for a first event to get that much interest and stuff. There were a lot of neat presentations. Obviously, like the keynote ones were historically significant and entertaining, but even some of these other projects, like the TrisVid project, was really cool. I really liked the TRS-80 emulator project for Android. Did you guys catch that?
No, I need to watch that.
Yeah,
that is a cool one. It's a very cool one. They've even got their own app store. Neat.
Yeah. So there's neat things going on, and you guys asked earlier what was your favorite thing. It's hard to pick. It's like when you got more than one kid. It's like, what's your favorite kid? Some days that decision's easier to make than others, but usually it's like, I couldn't pick a favorite presentation. I don't know that I could pick a favorite moment. I think the whole thing. I think the word I would best use to describe it was an experience. The whole thing was an experience. It was a very positive experience, and I really enjoyed it.
One question I'd like to throw at the organizers that might help with the trying to schedule between watching speakers and doing the show floor. I know some conventions will have some of your speeches and your guests and stuff there do the presentation, say up till noon, starting at 9 or 10 in the morning, but the show floor itself doesn't open till noon, which gives vendors time to do any extra setup or not, but it also gives a chance for you to shift it so that you've got an overlap, but it's not complete, like 100% overlap that you're trying to do everything at once. You've got a couple of hours just for speakers, and then at the end of the day, you have a couple of hours just for the show floor. Is that something that might help with, trying to get everything, take everything in?
No.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Those are all good ideas.
Yeah, it's something to consider. Any option you offer, though, there's always going to be somebody to say, "Yeah, well, but then I'll just be sitting around with my thumb in my rear end waiting for the speaker to finish." So I mean,
I'm kind of in that crowd. I'd rather have them run simultaneous, but that's just me.
Right.
So,
I just remember from Rainbow Fest, like it was just too much. And they didn't tape them back then either. So I mean, I missed a ton of stuff I wanted to see, and I remember it kind of made me mad. Why are you scheduling all this stuff type thing? But I guess it depends on the person and what their preference is. Maybe they prefer the speakers. Maybe they prefer the show floor.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we had 5 days, that'd be nice.
Yeah, there we go. Tandy Fest.
And then, people complain, well, maybe there should just be less speakers, just 2 or 3 speakers, and then it's easy to see more of them. But then if we have less speakers, then you're just saying, I didn't want to see the speaker at all. If you don't want to see the speaker at all, you could have stayed on the show floor. So, I mean, it doesn't make much difference that way either. So it's kind of like it's hard to please everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think there might be some...
a little bit more balance next year, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think with this event being a Tandy event versus a CoCo event, I think, for me, other than the keynote, it wasn't a whole lot of ones that I was interested in going specifically to see. I figured... Plus, with the fact that I knew I could watch him later because Stevie was going to be, recording everything. So, I guess it depends on what I mean, if we had a more CoCo-centric, I guess, emphasis next year, then maybe it would change for me. But
if only there was a completely CoCo-dedicated event that we could all attend.
If only that was later in the year. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, we need another 6 months to plan that one.
Yeah, like myself, I'm generally more in the CoCo side of things too, but I really like seeing what the other people do. Plus, I did use TRS-80s back in the day too myself, and the Tandy. So I would have liked to seen everything. I would have been there at the show trying to figure out, okay, do I want to see the speaker? Or do I want to see the show floor? because I want to ask questions about some of the stuff that was shown on the show floor, not just for the CoCo, but just out of the interest sake of all the stuff they've been doing on the TRS-80s. And I would have been torn pretty well every hour of the day type thing, trying to figure out what I would have wanted to do.
No, it's a terrible problem to have when you're complaining about there being too much happening at this event. My God, there's just too much, man. So
and I wouldn't want you to restrict, like John was saying. I wouldn't want you to cut the speakers. I would just like to say offset schedule so you can try to take as much as in as you can.
Well,
but that would be my preference.
The other good thing about having that much content, like Stevie said, is it kind of like, for me, it's like, all right, I'm going to come back next year and see what else they have. Well, what are they going to have next year? So it's not like you went to the event and went, okay, I've been here for 3 hours and I'm already bored. It wasn't like that. So I think that was a good side of all that.
So what do you guys think for next year? I mean, do you think that maybe some of the allure was that this was the first one and we gotta be there, or do you think lightning is going to strike twice? And do you anticipate any challenges or anything else? You're not going to obviously rest on your laurels after one event. So I mean, what's your thoughts going into next year?
I only saw one woman there, I think.
That was the one from the bar, wasn't it?
You can't count her. Actually, 2 of them, but you can't count them.
I'm pretty enthused for next year. I think that we'll probably make some adjustments. We did well from the auction, so we may have some better amenities. And I don't know. I heard from a lot of people that some people stayed away because it was the first one because they didn't know if it was going to go anywhere.
That's the stupidest reason.
I agree. That's the dumbest.
That's like an oxymoron. I'm not going to go because it's the first one because it may not be a second one. Well, if you don't go to the first one, then there won't be a second one.
Exactly.
So it's weird.
I think the streaming, will probably draw more people to it as well. The fact that they got to see it and there was good response to that, I'm hopeful that we'll get even more people next year.
Yeah,
because it's both a blessing and a curse because it entices you to want to enjoy the show, and if you enjoy all the streaming going on, you're going, this is something I want to go to. On the other hand, some people might not come because I can just watch it on the stream type thing. So
right, it might be worth considering doing it as a dropping it after the show, maybe instead of a live stream next time. Just the thought that way, the show is still the thing while it's going on, and then drop the videos later. Maybe I don't know, just the thought, but.
Yeah, but then Steve starts demanding higher pay, and it's bad enough we can't get David back on the show.
Yeah,
don't have Steve either.
and the live stream helped me because I'd asked Steve to ask some of the speakers questions, and he actually did ask a few himself.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, like let's say you were one of the speakers and you had family from out of town that couldn't make it. You want your family to see have that moment. I don't think the live stream takes away from it. I just think there's some people who just wouldn't come or couldn't come anyways. I think it's a bit of a value added, and as well as
an advertising for it too.
It is, yeah. So now you have promotions for next year. You can take any of that video, you can kind of cut that down into a little sizzle reel and have a promotion. If you didn't make Tandy Assembly last year, look at what you missed. We had drunk girls walking through the lobby, and all that kind of stuff. So, I think it should help. So if somebody was on the fence, which is the stupidest thing, like, I'm not going to come because it's the first one, that is the most ridiculous logic. But if you were on the fence, you've seen it. So now there's no excuse. And
not only have you seen it, but it was very good and successful. So that was that was nice to see. So
one good thing was when you had the auction and you showed the audience, we were able to see who was raising their hand and who went up and took some of the stuff. That was an interesting part.
Yeah, and it's really hard to do that room justice. And just having a stationary camera, you get to see a little window into it. But yeah, there's a certain energy that's there that you just can't capture on even just any part of it. And the speaking parts, the exhibit hall, being able to record it is nice, but it doesn't capture the energy of really being there. There's just that extra something that you can't digitize. The analog aspect is you really have to experience.
One thing I have to really give you props, Steve, is that you had the side camera where we could view the audience, plus you had the main camera on the speaker, so you could see audience reactions. that was a really nice touch that I think we should do for CoCo Fest as well.
Yeah, I wasn't able to do that at CoCo Fest on my previous laptop because it could barely handle one camera. So I had to get a beefier laptop that could support the the processing of multiple webcams.
So I'm wondering, just out of curiosity, how did the taking of credit cards and PayPal affect the auction? Did people increase their bids because of that, or do you think there was no difference?
I think there was a... Go ahead, John.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, it's hard to tell, but, since we can't rerun any of it, but, I felt like people were freer with their bidding and easier to sell stuff to. I think it's a good thing. I definitely would advocate for us to do it again if it was to come up again. I advocated this week for Glenside to do it for their auction. They may eventually get talked into it.
Yeah, you might think.
Well, you got my vote on that one.
Yeah. And if you can somehow run a credit card machine through the CoCo 3, they might consider it.
As long as it saves everything to Dynastar, they're fine.
There were definitely people that ran out of cash that went to PayPal. So we
I was one of those as well because I blew out my cash budget too. So
well, I see the Model 4 sitting there. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money because I knew we were going to go. I walked over to the mic and I'm like, hey, can I go get money, come back, pay? He's like, oh, we take credit cards. I'm like, okay, no problem then. So it was nice.
I was just going to say, it's also a good idea for international people, for guests coming as well.
Yeah.
Very handy.
Yeah.
And I always run out of cash when I'm at CoCo Fest, so it was a good
thing. I typically I'm used to not carrying cash in my regular daily life. I just in the 21st century we can swipe.
Or tap.
Swipe or tap.
Swipe, tap, or chip. We could have
we can do it all. So that was great because even I bought a mouse pad and it was a $3 mouse pad, but I didn't have cash. So the fact I could just do my little plastic thing and get the $3 mouse pad, it was convenient. And then really, so the convenience factor is great. And then if there was a bigger ticket item and somebody didn't have the cash, you might say, well, gosh, I don't want to bid more than $100 out of my pocket, but I've got this credit card thing where I can make easy low monthly payments on this thing. I might just go ahead and buy it, So I think that does open up some potential sales that might have been restricted if you had to do it with what cash you had on hand. And again, these are things to me that just make sense. They just make sense. Why not?
In the future, on Tandy Assembly 17, they can take internet auction stuff, huh?
That was discussed even at a CoCo Fest. It seems to be like that just slows things down, and it's kind of hard to enforce, and it's kind of hard to collect on. So,
it is now because we don't have much technology.
Yeah.
Maybe by CoCo, by Assembly 14 or 17, we'll have more technology.
Right. Well, by that time, we've entered the Star Trek Next Generation area, and money just went away by then. So, so that's fine.
Holographic bidders would certainly be easier to deal with.
Yeah, well, there was a few questions in live chat that I haven't been watching here. So getting back to an earlier discussion about Brendan's CoCo VGA, Norlander had asked, is there CoCo VGA for the CoCo 3? Which let me get all the questions out, then we'll answer them. Or is anybody working on one? And we have an answer to that question. And then the next thing that Norlander said was that the stream appeared to be pixelated. And I'm not sure if that was on your end, but on day one they unlocked a lot of bandwidth, and I had something like 50 or 80 megabit download speed on that thing. So day one's bandwidth should not have been an issue. Now day two, the bandwidth wasn't as good, but I was still able to stream at either like 2 or 4 megabits, which should have been fine. So I don't know if that was on your end, Norlander, but did anybody else notice from any of the Sunday streams if it seemed pixelated at all?
Not excessively.
There was some. There was some when you were walking around, but it was only like between when you moved the camera until it got stationary, like when you were going from place to place. But it wasn't a hassle.
And that's normal because, you have to redraw the entire frame every time you're moving the camera like that versus compression where you're on a static spot.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Okay, Fedor has joined us. Hello, Fedor. Retro Innovation says need more power. So yeah, that's Jim Brain. We did. That was an interesting thing. Having a lot of this old technology was tripping a couple of circuit breakers by having too many things off of one feed in there. And I think it was. That
was our only glitch, and we did get it worked out, but it took a while to get the maintenance guys to open up the breakers for us.
Yeah,
I had to do that here. I got 2 different circuits for the stuff I got turned on because I don't want to pop anything.
Yeah, I mean some of the older tech just drew a lot of amps, you know.
Yeah.
I think it was saying there was a Tandy 2000 with its internal hard drive that every time that one fired up, it would pop the circuit breaker. So I had to keep the 2000 offline for a while there. So.
Thank God you guys didn't have a PDP fest there. Blowing breakers like crazy.
There was an Altair clone there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, Paul Fiscarelli, FISCAP, he had the Altair thing with the terminal on it.
The ADM 3A terminal that I recognized.
Did any of you guys see his project he's working on where it's basically like a visual disk image browser?
Yeah, I did. That was awesome.
Oh my God, that was neat. Yeah. Yeah, that was really, really neat. So it's kind of like if you know what the Finder looks like on the Mac or what the Folder Explorer looks like on Windows, but you can browse disk images and look at them dozens of different ways, like just looking at the directory level of what's on a disk image and then clicking on a file and being able, if it was a basic file, it would detokenize it. You could actually see the listings. If it was an assembly file, it would disassemble it. You could see all the assembly code. You could get like a hex dump of what was on the floppy. You could do like image viewing. There was just so many different ways to view what was in a disk image. It was really, really impressive. This is a very useful tool because, I don't even know how to use some of the other tools that most of you guys know how to use with these modern disk imaging, where you use a modern PC to manipulate disks. So I'm used to having to mount it in the CoCo or the emulator and type in dir and see what's on it. I don't even have too many, high-tech ways of doing that. So yeah, that was kind of a neat little project, and I know he's still working on it. So that's going to be.
Was that shown on the stream? Because I don't remember seeing that. It might have been one of the.
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I don't. If it was maybe on one of the ones where we were talking from the exhibit hall. There was a few times I walked around with my phone and just streamed from the exhibit hall, so it might be in the middle of one of those. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's been a whirlwind for me since I've been back. My work has been really, really busy. So I just pulled a few things out of the boxes that have been sitting on the floor here since last weekend. I've been like travel logged, just all the driving and everything else. It's like I still feel like I'm trying to catch up on my sleep. So I got that going against me, and then my work has been really busy. So I've had no time to look at any of the videos or anything from last week. So I wouldn't change a thing. So getting back to Norlander's question, how do we get VGA out on a CoCo 3? Anybody want to take that? What you suggest for that?
Well, I know I talked to Rob at the show. He's in the call, right? Yeah, there he is. And I think I looked at his SCART and the SCART option that he has with the cable and all that. If you want to do RGB, obviously. If you're looking to do some sort of other composite or whatever, then I guess you have another solution. But I thought that really had good output. He had some stuff run on it, and I think that's the way I'm going to go personally.
Yeah. The other option is the Spectra from Mark Marlette and Cloud9, which actually does composite stuff through the RGB cable, though it's a lot more expensive than a SCART cable, obviously.
It also emulates artifact colors, which is nice.
Right.
Yeah, he got my name wrong. It's Richard, not Robert.
Oh, sorry about that.
Richard Lorbieski. It's okay.
Yeah, that was I had the SCART cable thing going. But right now, as I speak, you can hear in the background that's my heat gun. But I'm actually making more cables right now.
Yeah, that your setup was pretty neat there, Richard, and we've got a handful of videos we've taken of Richard Lorbieski actually doing the brain surgery and putting a 6309 in a CoCo 3. So I've got to download some of that video, and we'll be releasing some of that. But it's a really neat process to desolder the CPU, and the way that Richard does it with the solder sucker thing, it makes it look so easy and quick. But seeing that process of removing and I still have it, he gave it back to me. It was a clean removal of the 6809 from the CoCo 3, so I've still got that. Putting in the socket, putting the 6309 in there, that process was really interesting. And having the right tools makes it it's almost like cheating. It's just like it makes it so quick and easy. So I've heard of people cutting the legs off of the CPU, which is you've just killed a chip by doing that. You might want to find another way to manually desolder that kind of stuff, but having that solder sucker just pull everything off, it just made it so quick and easy. And your craftsmanship.
How long did it actually take?
It took a little bit of time, but not too long. How long would you think it took, Richard?
About 15-20 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
But that's from taking it apart to putting it back together. The actual CPU part of it didn't take terribly long, but he's very careful. He's got great attention to detail there.
Yeah, just taking the chip out, it took less than about a little over 5 minutes.
Yeah. But your craftsmanship and your attention to detail and your steady hand and everything, it's really good. Good stuff.
Do you have to take the motherboard off of the case, or do you do it on the top?
No, you have to take the motherboard out. You also have to remove the RF shield on the bottom of it as well, and then that's how I unsoldered from the bottom of the motherboard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's neat. It's real neat. So getting back to your question, Norlander, because the CoCo 3 has an RGB out, there's a number of ways you can take that RGB signal and convert that to VGA or other things. And so one of those ways is the SCART cable, and the SCART cable then needs to be adapted with a box to HDMI, and you can plug it into a modern thing. And there's been a number of these RGB to VGA projects over the years, I think, and the current one is Mark Marlette, as Curtis mentioned, the Cloud9 Tech product. And it seems like everybody keeps running into these same issues that like Brendan came into, whereas the artifacting is a big thing. And so Peter Bartlett, who also has this project he's working on, which is a cartridge, which is a really clever way of doing this thing. So he's got this cartridge that'll plug into the CoCo that gives you VGA output, and it kind of scans the bus, and it's reading everything, and it's outputting it that way. When he did it, he had never owned a CoCo before. He didn't even know about artifacting. So he's now having to incorporate that logic and stuff. So it seems like this is a wheel that keeps coming up, and it's a wheel that has to keep being reinvented. And so and Brendan, since you're very near and dear to this and by the way, how did it go for you? Were your expectations met or exceeded when it came to just the general reception to CoCo VGA, as well as selling some units and stuff?
Yeah, I was really happy. I was actually a little bit surprised that we sold out. It was actually one reason why I was glad that my wife handed me the square on the way out the door, so that I could potentially take credit cards as a way to entice folks who maybe didn't want to run out of cash or wanted to reserve their cash for other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was very happy that we sold out, and it was fun to be able to do 3 of the installations there, and thanks to Richard Lorbieski with some of the RF modulator desoldering. That was most helpful. But yeah, I mean, it was a great event. I missed a number of the presentations that I would like to have seen, so I'm really glad, Stevie, that you recorded them. So now I can sort of catch up on those kind of after the fact. But yeah, it was busy. It was fun. It was great hanging out in the exhibit hall and chatting with folks about the project and about their projects. Yeah, I had a great time, and I think the reception for CoCo VGA was great. I mean, it was as good or better than I would have expected.
Okay, very cool. I'm glad to hear that. The output is so clean. It's like I'm used to looking at. I watch my CoCo 3, and I have Ed Snyder's prototype, so it does RGB to S video, and then I run that through my computer in a capture, and I look at it on my flat panel monitor, and it's super clean. There's no artifacting. I can look at 80 column text, and it looks good, and I was kind of spoiled by that. But then looking at your display, it's just like, oh my God, I must have had mud in my eyes this whole time, because it's like for the first time I have seen what a color computer is supposed to look like. It is so clear. It is so crisp. And again, it just reminded me of David Ladd, how clean and pretty it was. And it's just...
Darn you.
But it's incredible how good it looks, and then when you throw in things like your 64 by 32 column mode, which is super cool, and then you've got multiple artifact modes. So yeah, there's all these projects, and I guess you've run into the artifacting challenge, and so any like short story you want to share with us, like what it was like to have to deal with artifacting, and some maybe a lesson you learned from that or anything like that.
Sure. Artifacting, it's sort of the sort of thing where I sort of initially made the assumption that, well, it's just the basic artifacting gets you the red and blue in P mode 4, and that's just based on the pixel location, either odd or even in the Y direction. But then you start looking at some of these other games, like
Sands of Egypt.
Sands of Egypt, for example.
Shooting gallery.
And they're seeing so many other colors. You get so many more out of that you just, wow, where do I go from here? So I was lucky that I had mess or MAME to fall back on. So I actually stole the algorithm from that and basically ported it to Verilog for my purposes.
Okay.
So that was a challenge, and I spent quite a bit of time with that. And even so, I mean, the mess and MAME is probably the most authentic, but I also don't particularly like that mode for text adventures and things like that. I think it's a little bit too muddy. So anyways, I added some other modes there that will hopefully make those types of games and applications a little more palatable. But anyway. But yeah, this has been a bit of a kind of a bucket list item for me because, back in the day with my CoCo 2, I had it connected up to a little Panasonic TV, and I remember, the interference patterns would just hypnotize me when I'm sitting there trying to program, and I told myself someday I'm going to fix this so my CoCo doesn't do this anymore. So anyway, it was definitely a project that I wanted. So. I'm very happy that other people are excited about it as well.
Right. Well, so now that you've gone through some of these prototypings and you have Ed Snyder helping you, and it's not necessarily one person operation right now. If all of a sudden you got an order for 50 units and the floodgates opened up, how quickly would you be able to respond to that? Would there be a waiting list or things like that, or is
So I actually do maintain a waiting list. So I have a spreadsheet that I keep going. In terms of responding and getting them out in any particular time frame, I think that would be something I'd have to ask Ed for because he's doing all of the assembly himself.
Okay.
He ships me this last time around. He shipped me the majority of the parts so that I could further distribute them and. Install them for folks and things like that. So, I think, he said that that's a time savings for him. So we may continue that way. I wouldn't mind learning how to do what he does, but I think it might be a little while yet.
Okay. And
I have one question.
You're not the only thing that Ed makes either, too. So Ed sometimes has a waiting list on his own projects. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And Ed has plenty of other, experiments that he's doing as well.
Yeah. Very cool. Sorry, Curtis.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, I know it's specifically right now for a certain version of the circuit board, correct?
Yes, that's right.
How many different versions, if you go between the CoCo 1, the CoCo 2, and the Dragon, how many different versions is there that you would have to make to cover them all?
Well, so the CoCo 2 with the Rev B board in it, and the US Tano Dragon, the same board fits in both of those. So that both of those systems are covered with the current one that we have. So my gut feel is that there will be another one or maybe two, depending on the board in the CoCo 1. How the F board versus some of the earlier boards are laid out. Ed is looking at trying to combine some of the earlier CoCo 2s or some of the Korean CoCo 2s with some CoCo 1s. So my gut feel is there will probably be another 2 board form factors. It might be a little more than that, but in any case, that's my gut feel. The other thing that it would be really cool to have an MC10 with VGA. That would make it a lot easier for me to travel to CoCo Fest and things like that as well, because it would fit in my luggage easier. But but there's so little room inside that case. I'm not sure how feasible that's going to be. So that'll be another thing that we need to take a look at.
Neat.
Cool. Thanks.
Very cool. All right, and just in case anybody, when we've been talking about artifacting, so if anybody's out there not even knowing what artifacting is, it's not a ancient relic that Indiana Jones picks out, but it's how we get the red and blue colors on the old television screens, because that was a black and white mode that actually created these false colors that became part of the games, and so the whole idea of artifacting is something that is an analog thing that typically is only available on the old CRT televisions. Once you go to digital and you go to VGA and things like that, you lose that and you see just these black and white stripes. And so the ability to recreate that on these VGA and HDMI projects is, it requires some sorcery to kind of to do. So it's pretty cool.
And it's nice to support both, because there are some things like, say, a word processor or some of the old black and white games like Dungeons and Dragons. You do want the plain black and white,
right?
And then other games you do want the artifacting.
Yeah, that was neat. There was a gentleman, I don't remember his name, but he came up to me and he goes, I was told you would be the guy to ask if I wanted to get a couple of games on cartridge to play on the Color Computer 3. So we went over to the Cloud 9 table and we're kind of going through the different games. Like, what is the must-have? If he just got a CoCo 3, he got a 128K CoCo 3. So we were looking at things like Rampage, which was a great game for the CoCo 3. And of one of those games, I was basically showing him that if you got a CoCo 2 cartridge and you're going to plug it into an RGB, you couldn't do artifacting. But one of the games, like you just mentioned, Curtis, like Dungeons of Daggereth, that is black and white, kind of this vector art thing. That is perfect for a non-artifact screen. So he did get, if you've never owned a cartridge game and you wanted to start a CoCo collection, Dungeons of Daggereth has definitely got to be in your top 10, next to Farfall, of course. Although that wouldn't run on a CoCo 3, but. Yes, I think he got Dungeons of Daggereth, and he might have got Rampage or something like that. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool walking around looking at it. It's neat that we can sit here and kind of window shop through cartridges, because Cloud9's just got bins and bins of CoCo games on cartridge, and you can kind of pick through them. And do I want a loose cart? Do I want one in the plastic bubble pack? Do I want one in a box? Do I want one with or without a manual? You had so many choices there. It's pretty cool.
You know why they have those?
Why do they have those?
Well, so, Mark's been making add-ons to the CoCo for years, and he was looking for ways to collect cartridge cases back in the days before we had any new ones that we could make. So, and it wasn't that long ago when you go to CoCo Fest, and you could basically get a trash bag full of cartridges for 25 cents a pound or something like that.
Wow.
And so he was buying them in bulk. And unfortunately, he found out later that after they get a little age on them, they sometimes get a little brittle or whatever. So that's part of why he's been selling them off, because he found that the cases had become kind of useless, at least for taking them apart and using them for something else.
Yeah.
And of course, now we have a source for new ones. So economically, he just will use our cases for new stuff. But yeah, so. Just scavenging the old cases didn't turn out to be an economically viable alternative in the long run.
Yeah, because I remember he used to always request trying to get disc control, like the larger size cases too, for some of the projects too. So.
Yeah, there should be some of those laying around in the community, because there used to be a bunch of the longer disc control style cases just available, but apparently they're drying up, and I can't find mine. So.
Well, he was a little tight-lipped, but also kind of gave a teaser when asked about what Mark from Cloud9 was working on. He wasn't going to say what it was, but all he was going to say is that it's going to blow everything else out of the water. So that will hopefully we'll see what that is. And this is a guy whose words carry some weight, so it's hopefully not just lip service. But he's made a lot of great things in the past, so it'd be interesting to see what. And he's aware of what's going on because we had a little mini conversation. I was saying to him, I said, there's all these projects coming out right now, like Jim Brain's memory add-on and all these other things. And so he's definitely aware of what other projects are happening, and he still was able to say with great confidence that his next big thing will blow everything out of the water. So that'll be interesting to see when that comes out.
I'm pretty sure a lot of us old timers know exactly what he's talking about.
Okay.
It's been promised for quite a while, and it keeps changing. Feature creep.
Well, okay. Well, that's not necessarily new then either. But yeah, I was thinking it might be something completely different. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Could be. I mean, I haven't talked to him about it recently, but I did talk to him last year, the year before at CoCo Fest, about the status of it, and he was adding a whole bunch of stuff at that point. So. Yeah. Well, we've been going for a while now. We've been going for well over an hour and a half, and I know there's a couple other segments we wanted to get to. So, I know, Ron Delvaux, you still there? Are you awake? Did we lose Ron? We might have lost Ron Delvaux. Maybe Ron will call back. So, it's very possible we might be able to have a Grant Leighty question that does not lead to a 4-hour pontification fest. We'll try that. So, why not? Well, here he comes. Here he comes.
Don't copy that floppy.
Don't copy that fuss. Yeah, it looks like Ron's trying to say Ron is back. So, do we want to? We're going to try it. We're going to try this, and I hope I won't regret doing this, but we're going to try to have Grant's newbie question of the week. But before we do that, because this is a professionally run show here, we have to have the official infographic here right now. So hold on just a second here while I get my announcer queued up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NewbieTALK with Grant Leighty, featuring the newbie question of the week, which hopefully won't spawn a 4-hour debate. And on that note, take it away, Grant Leighty.
Thank you, Steve. Going for 5 hours today.
Grant Leighty, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. And yourself?
Not bad, not bad. What'd you do last weekend?
Spent a lot of money.
Way to help the economy.
Exactly. And just to let everybody know, I did get a CM8 as well, so I am finally got a monitor, so I'm very happy.
Yeah. Irony can be pretty ironic sometimes, because Michael Brandt drove with me. He had a CM8 in the car the whole time, which he ended up selling to you. And on the last day of the show, I ended up buying a CM8 monitor that I brought back with me. So the weight distribution of the vehicle didn't change too much in that respect. So very cool. What is the question of the week you have for us today, Grant Leighty?
Well, if you purchase a brand new color, well, I shouldn't say brand new, but you purchase a new color computer, what add-ins should you get, and what accessories should you buy?
All of the above.
Well, let me turn the question into a question, Grant Leighty, because you have recently obtained a couple of color computers. So what accessories did you obtain, and what motivated you to get those?
Well, one of the big things I did was the 6309 upgrade. I did that this last weekend. Also, I got a multi-pack interface from you as well, and I got the upgrade for the PAL chip on that, and then, of course, the CM8. But, the reason I asked this question, because I know Rick's got a new computer here this last week, and he was asking, what should I get, and, what is the things you should get for a computer? For
SDC for sure.
Yeah, that would be my first vote too. For whether you have a CoCo 1, 2, or a 3, or anything, that's the must go to.
The single must have accessory is the CoCo SDC, huh?
I would agree with that, but I'd also say that if you're on a budget, DriveWire comes pretty close.
Okay, there you go. Very true. DriveWire. And the only caveat to CoCo SDC is that running a disk controller requires you to have extended color basic. So in the off chance you've got a color basic CoCo, which there's still a number of those floating around, then the CoCo SDC would not be an option.
That is true. Now, Ciaran, you were mentioning that the Dragon MMC can actually support like cassette and stuff too, like virtual cassette files. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. Hello. It's sort of on-the-fly patches This isn't mine, by the way. This is somebody who frequents the Dragon Archive forums, Phil or somebody. I know his name, but it's just escaped my brain. And it uses the what do you call it in CoCo world, SLNB signal, the one that inhibits the device selects, so it can sort of inhibit access to the local ROM and patch it on the fly. And so yeah, it supports loading various virtual, what you would normally use in an emulator.
Okay, yeah, because it handles various disk format files. It handles cassette files. And it works on Dragon and CoCo 1 too.
Yeah, and it'll slurp in a ROM and pretend to be a ROM for you as well, a bit like the CoCo SDC, but on the fly again. It doesn't have flash. Well, it probably does have flash, but it doesn't do it that way. It's kind of cool. It's different.
Yeah, because that was one thing I was kind of confused. I'd heard about the project, but I didn't really know what the difference was. And to me, at that first glance, it looked redundant with the CoCo SDC. But from what you mentioned earlier in chat today and what you're talking about now, there are some pretty big differences between it and the CoCo SDC.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The best bit, there's a little button on it. You press the button, and you can save a snapshot of the whole machine or load a previous one to an SD card. Sorry.
So you save a game in progress and then just pick up where you left off the next day, type thing.
Yeah, it's like you were using an emulator.
That's cool. That's cool.
That is cool.
Phil Harvey Smith.
Okay. So yeah, it's a similar, but that's a variant of the CoCo SDC, and it sounds like it's got some different features, which is pretty cool. Now, is this the one that also had the MMU capability as well?
No. So Tormod Bolden, he maintains some of the Toolshed stuff as well. He's created various little hardware projects over time, and his latest one is a memory expansion for the CoCo 1.2 Dragon, probably 3, don't know, but why would you need it on a 3? No, probably not 3, but it implements some of the gimmies, whatever MMU functionality as well, and he's using that to get Nitros 9 level 2 running, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Never had that on the Dragon before.
Neat. Very neat.
Yeah, I hooked up my SDC to the Dragon, and I did the selector switch, to make it work on the Dragon, and then I used the memory number 2 slot on, and I got the stuff to come up. I posted on the Dragon site, but I couldn't give it any commands. Is it because I just don't know the syntax? You can't just do a dir. You have to do. Is there some other syntax for getting a directory and loading stuff in?
Oh yeah, on the CoCo SDC.
Many things are similar. So dir is the same command. So you've got a Dragon DOS running, and you've mounted a disk, I guess, using whatever the command is for that. It should work.
It didn't.
So you did the dir minus to see what was on the SD card, and you mounted one of the DSK files into the.
I had the setup, the same setup I have for my CoCo, which is full of software,
Yeah.
And in fact, I wanted to run the assembly.
Well, the disk format is different, though, right, Ciaran? So you would need to have a Dragon formatted disk image for the Dragon to be able to read it.
You would, certainly.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
I have to put another chip in and then set it up for the Dragon. So
you've already got the, what is it, DOS plus 5 or so?
Yeah,
somebody's
that's what shows up. Yep.
Right. So that's got all the CoCo SDC gubbins all added to it, but yeah, you'll just need some Dragon format disk image files, like .dsk or .vdks.
So that's where I was going wrong. I was trying to mess with CoCo stuff in the Dragon, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, they're nicely incompatible in that respect.
Nicely incompatible.
Well, I could see that right away, and I thought,
unless we're doing your hybrids, Ciaran.
Right. It's a British computer, so it's very polite when it's incompatible. Pardon me, but that just won't work here. There you go, problem solved. So the question is, again, if you just got a CoCo, what are the must-have things? I think everybody agrees that the CoCo SDC is the must-have accessory. What else? If you were starting from scratch or you were going to recommend somebody to get a CoCo, what would you recommend they get for it?
The next one I would recommend is maximum RAM upgrade for whatever model you have.
Okay. I heard something about a flash at the same time. Was somebody else saying something about a flash?
Yes, CoCo Flash.
CoCo Flash, which is similar but different than the CoCo SDC, right? You want to give a short spin. I don't know if you can ever explain anything briefly, David, but try.
Basically, the CoCo Flash is what the CoCo SDC is for floppies, but the CoCo Flash is for cartridges.
Yes.
So therefore, you just put your cartridge images onto the CoCo Flash, and Barry and his daughter did a nice job on getting the UI. I haven't been able to get images loaded on yet because I don't know where to get the utility to do it yet.
There you go.
But yeah, it's but the menu is nice. You know, you turn it on, it presents you a menu, you select the ROM, and you start. It's very nice. So, and it also has the Orchestra 90 DACs in it too. So, it makes having that piece of hardware combined in one piece of hardware night.
Yeah. When we talk about future hardware projects, if we were going to get into a wish list, it would be nice if there was a second generation CoCo SDC that would incorporate a handful of these newer technologies that are on the cusp, like, audio chips and the CoCo DAC and anything else we want to put in there, because one of the things that Grant mentioned is Grant says, I got the multi-pack. And if you're not familiar with the multi-pack, it's kind of a sidecar you snap into your cartridge slot, and it gives you a 4-slot expansion bus for your CoCo, because we got to the point where we needed more things. It would be nice to not rely on those. Now, Ed Snyder has the mini MPI, which is available, and I think it's about $80 for the product and the 3D printed case, which is not bad. Real MPIs are a little bit more scarce to find. They sell for usually $100, maybe a little bit more when you come across them. But if we could reduce the dependency on those and have more multi-utility cartridge, that would be kind of cool. That opens up a whole other can of worms, because then you're going to say, well, what sound chip are we going to use, and what are we going to do for this, and what are we going to do for that? But it would be nice to say, okay, because here's what's happening right now, and it's already floating around Facebook. People have decided, I'm going to start putting games, and I think Nick Marentes mentioned this too, I'm going to put his new game on an SD card. He's not even going to put it on a CD, because you can make an SD self-executing. And they have all these little labels they're putting on Facebook right now, these nice little cool labels that look like ROM cartridge labels you can stick on the SD card, stick it in your CoCo.
That's what I'm going to do with mine too.
Yeah, stick it in the CoCo SDC and poof, it boots. So we have the ability to have self-executing SD cards. SD cards are reasonably priced, and so now the CoCo SDC could be this super utility cartridge if we could throw in, digital audio and music synthesis into one cart. That would be really cool. I don't know what the future generations of CoCo SDC will have, but that would be, in my opinion, a must-have hardware accessory.
Yeah, we definitely want to start getting the hardware projects to future-proof a bit, like allow expandability. It's kind of like Disto did back with the super controllers, where they added that little mini bus, and then they could add 2-in-1, 3-in-1, 4-in-1 cards. You could add all kinds of different hardware, and I think we have to start taking the same approach here, where you can expand on it without having to replace the whole thing every time.
No, that doesn't add any layer of complexity to designing a circuit board or a case or anything, does it?
No, not at all. I'm not a hardware guy, so it doesn't concern me whatsoever. So.
What are the three words?
I mean, the CoCo SDC partly went there on the software side, because it is flashable on your ROMs. It's flashable even on the, the internal programming as well, and that has helped future-proof it. We've been able to add streaming and other functionality. I think we need to try to design projects somewhat with that in mind, instead of saying, here's a fixed thing, I'm just going to do that, and then a year later it's like, oh geez, I wish I'd put this on there too.
Well, I think there's 3 words that can best describe this, and what are those 3 words, Nick Marentes?
Ease of use.
Oh, Lord.
That's what the CoCo needs is ease of use. So Curtis mentioned adding the maximum RAM. So if you're able to find a CoCo 3, chances are it's going to be the stock 128K. And if this is your first CoCo 3, you're going to be happy to have it. And what would you say percentage-wise, if you only have a 128K CoCo 3, what percentage of CoCo games could you run? Would that be somewhere in the 80% range, do you think?
If you're counting CoCo 1 and 2, I'd say probably in the 90s.
Well, I'm talking about CoCo 3 specific
CoCo
games.
3 exclusive?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably about right on the 80, but if you want to play the current best games and almost all the new ones, well, then it starts shifting more towards the 512K side.
Right.
Plus, OS 9 is not that great, 128K either, from what I've seen. So
ease of use.
On 128K, you have trouble even getting ease of boot.
Ease of
right.
I think a Tandy Deluxe joystick is a good thing to have too.
Okay.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion.
2 of them, and I have one for sale too.
If only there was a hardware accessory that would allow us to plug in Sega and Atari style digital joysticks to our CoCo.
Yeah,
but then you don't get the analog piece then, which is kind of cool for some stuff though.
Yeah.
It's also, though, I mean, there's other alternative joysticks, even analog, that were available, and I know, like, Nick much prefers some of the other ones. He's not a big fan of the deluxe joystick, so I guess it depends what you could find.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say for the Color Computer 3, in my opinion, you want to definitely look to get an RGB solution, because unless you're doing specific artifacting games, I think the RGB output is just superior to what you're going to get otherwise.
Yes, I can agree with that.
Composite or RF out, for example, yeah. No doubt. Memory upgrades are becoming a little bit easier now. The memory upgrade in general on the CoCo 3 is not terrible. If you have the normal, like the Cloud9 Triad board, it's a fairly easy thing to put into place. So even if you're not a hardware guru, if I tell you it's easy, then it's easy, because I'm not a retro hardware guy. But yeah, putting in RAM. Grant, you upgraded your RAM, right?
Yes, I did. It was super easy.
And was that one of your first hardware projects?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, my first hardware project was actually just swapping out the PAL chip on the multi-pack, which was real easy to do. But I was in my previous life when the CoCo was new, the hardware was a mysterious, intimidating thing to me. I knew nothing about it as a young person. I didn't get into hardware until we got into the PCs, and at that point, it's just snapping cards into a slot, and when they go bad, you throw that card out, you snap in a new card. Retro Innovations, Jim Brain saying RAM is a must-have accessory, and he has lots of RAM options for us coming down the pike. The new CoCo 3 memory option will plug right into the socket of your gimme chip, and it becomes completely passive, and you don't have to do any soldering or desoldering, and that's a very cool product that hopefully we'll see soon. He's also looking at the mini CoCo Mem, which will add memory to the CoCo 1 and 2. And what is that going to bring it to, 64K or higher?
I think he's going up to 512K with an MMU.
Okay, up to 512K on a CoCo 1 or 2 with MMUs. Richard Lorbieski is saying a 6309 upgrade is a nice thing to have, but again, that's slightly invasive to do. It's definitely nice to have, but if you're not hardware capable, you might want to come to CoCo Fest or Tandy Assembly and have that done by a professional. But much agreed, that's a good thing. What about other like cartridge add-ons? What do you guys think? Like if you could get a speech sound pack, is it worth getting that? Anything else you can think of, value-added things that don't require soldering or surgery to the CoCo?
I guess it depends on what. I mean, sound speech pack is cool, but there's a very limited set of games that use it. I
think something like that is only if you're like collecting, you might grab one. It's just to have one, but for usability, I don't think you use them. I know I've never thought I want to get one to do this. Like I've never had a need to have one of those cards. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think everything that we've shared so far is a really good beginner startup or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, what about a floppy?
David Ladd, you want to take this one?
And here comes the 4-hour show.
No, actually, as far as floppy goes, the CoCo SDC, most people have already got most of the copy protected games in SDF images already. So the CoCo SDC covers that. So
the only time I would recommend getting a real floppy is if you have some old real floppy disks you want to get stuff off of. If you're coming into the retro computing brand new and you don't have any existing CoCo software, as David mentioned, most of the stuff is already on the archive, etc. There's no point in getting the real floppy.
Yeah, I picked up 4 of them for cheap from I forget where it was anymore. But yeah, I hardly use mine at all for anything because like Curtis said, if you don't have existing software for some reason you want to use it or that you can't transfer or whatever, then yeah, it's much simpler just to slap in the SDC and use that.
Yeah, for me, the only reason why I still pretty much use the floppy drives is because when you deal with the MAME development team, you have to be able to test it with real hardware. Because if you can't test it there, they'll ask you, did you test this as on real hardware? If you say no, then they won't even bother checking it until you've actually been able to verify it with real hardware. So it's one of those things.
Simon's holding up a floppy drive right now. We're seeing the innards of a floppy. So yeah,
half height by the looks of it.
Yeah, back when I was a kid, this is what we had.
That's one of those fangled half heights.
Simon, do you have a full height one to show off?
No, I don't actually.
Neat.
And now that we got Jim Brain on too, I was just going to say, is there any updates you'd like to give us on the memory upgrades you're doing, how they're progressing?
Hold on here, I was on mute.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I have it at the show. I was trying to get it to boot Nitrous 9, so that is done. So it is booting Nitrous 9 and works up to 2 meg. And I guess I'm waiting on you, Curtis, because I need somebody to test with a no-can board and get me an SDC image so I can try it here for above 2 meg.
Okay, wow. and are you kind of holding at the 8 meg level? Is that what you're planning on, or?
I think I think you'd send an email or something you'd responded on chat or whatnot, but I definitely will have the finished boards populated to 8 meg. Because, as you said, it's cheapest to go at that rate. It's like $5 or something for 8 meg of RAM.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and the price starts, and after that, the price goes up linearly. So, if you want 16 meg RAM, then it's $10. It's I guess $6 for 8 meg of RAM. It's $12 for 16 and so forth. But for things before that, like 4 meg is like $5 for 4 meg of RAM, and it's $6 for 8 meg of RAM. So it makes more sense to go to the 8 meg spot because you only have to pay an extra buck. I told some folks at the show I might design the board to have more footprints on it, so that for the chips, so that you could go up to 32 meg, or 16 meg or 32 meg or whatever. But I probably won't populate those just because I think right now, 8 meg is, like you said, it's 2 meg of Nitrous 9 and 6 meg of RAM disk or whatnot. Beyond that, I just don't know what folks are going to use. And right now, 8 meg is really 8 meg because it's just cheapest to put that much on the board, right? It's cheaper than putting 2 meg on the board. In fact, I think 2 meg I figured out was like $8 to put 2 meg chips on the board, and it was $6 to put 8 meg chip on the board. So.
Yeah, it's definitely the sweet spot. Seems to be the 8 meg, and then the nice thing about the 8 meg is that there actually is drivers already done, so you don't have to worry about the software side. There is RAM disk drivers that work with it already. So.
Yep. Right now, I just need to get I mean, David sent me a SDC image for Nitrous 9 that purports to work with a 2 meg RAM disk, which is what I would have on my 4 meg test board. But he doesn't really have a way to test it. He doesn't have a no-can board, and so I need to find somebody who can verify that it absolutely does work, and then because I hate to debug something that's not a real thing,
in the first
right?
place. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, Dave, do you want to send me that same disk image, and this next week I actually should have time to actually fire it back up again and give it a try.
Yeah, remind me after the show.
Right. Well, it's really neat that you're working on that stuff, Jim, and it makes hardware upgrading a little bit easier. Not that the 512K is a terribly complex process of all the various upgrades, but like one of the things you mentioned in your write-up is that you could always return to stock, and you don't have to really compromise anything of the system. So that kind of graceful entry and removal, if necessary, is a nice feature for an upgrade that I don't think. Not all options are that graceful and that clean. So that's a very cool design when possible.
Ease of use.
Ease of use, as Nick Marentes puts it. Yeah.
Well, if anybody's ever done the 1 or 2 meg upgrades from Dista before, that's not a simple process. That's soldering a 40-pin header right onto your CPU and plugging a DAT board and moving a wire over to the 1 meg board, and it's.
I think I discovered that on the CoCo 3 that I got from Neil Blanchard when we were troubleshooting why it wouldn't turn on, and we swapped CPUs, and I looked at the legs, and the legs looked like they had solder, residue on them and stuff. So it may have had a former disto on it before Neil sold it off and stuff. It does leave scars on the machine. So this is a very clean, minimal invasive way to do things.
Yeah. No soldering required, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm lazy.
Here's the irony of, and Brendan says he has to go. Thanks for being here, Brendan. Glad to have you. Yep. The irony of being lazy is it takes a lot of work to get to that point. You got to put a lot of design effort to make something simple. If you were really lazy, it would be a crappy design.
That's right. It was kind of I got to the show and I just got the unit working, and one person said, "Well, does it boot?" The inevitable question, right? Does it boot OS 9? And I said, well, I don't know. I just got it working on Wednesday, so I just decided I'd bring it here. I mean, I literally drove out to head on my way to Ohio on Thursday night. So Wednesday night was the last night that I could do any work on the unit before I had to pack it up. And I said it was working. I think it was working Tuesday night, and I cleaned up some stuff on it on Wednesday just a little bit, but I didn't have time to break it open and really do a bunch of testing on it. And I didn't have I hadn't even looked for a Nitrous 9 disc yet. So anyway, I get to the show, somebody asks a question, I start trying it out, it's not working, and I'm thinking, it works in 512K mode, but it doesn't work in 2 meg mode, and so I'm kind of debugging and whatnot. And what's really annoying about debugging these things is you're assuming that it's going to be something really arcane, like, you've way down deep in the electronics, you've done something strange, and it's going to cause a problem. In the end, I got the unit back here. I hooked it up to my big logic analyzer that's only available here at the house, and so I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm thinking that context switching is what the problem is. So every time a Nitrous 9 switches to a new task, I'm thinking that's the issue, and I'm seeing on the scope or on the logic analyzer it's working fine. But I'm just kind of looking at stuff, trying to figure out what's going on, and then I'm just looking at the code, and I realize that it's the inevitable decimal to or metric to imperial conversion type issue or whatnot. There's a special page in memory that the gimme sets up so that you can share it among all of the places, and it's supposed to be 256 bytes in size, and so the prefix for it is FE. It's the FE page in memory, and somehow that's right. And so I had somehow gotten in my head that was FFE, and that it was only 16 bytes in size. So I was starving Nitrous 9 trying to get it to share only 16 bytes of memory in the entire space. And so I changed that. It was like a one-line change, and all of a sudden Nitrous 9 boots up. So it's kind of annoying that you spend, like, I don't know how many hours of the show I spent debugging it, and how many hours, Monday or Tuesday, most of Monday night and Tuesday night debugging, and then all of a sudden, it was just some stupid thing where if I'd have read the manual a little more cleanly, then I wouldn't have had this problem in the first place. So anyway, it's good to know it's working.
That's cool.
And then you had the video RAM, I think, too, was the other issue, wasn't it?
Well, video RAM was before. That was what I set the, I think I told a number of people this, and I told them at the show, but I had the unit built for CoCo Fest, right? I was going to show it off at CoCo Fest. I'm thinking, it's a pretty simple idea, and I'll just kind of throw it together and everything, and I got it booted up, and it had all these crazy characters on the screen, and I just, at some point when you're right, Steve, you get lazy and whatnot, but then you get frustrated, and then you're like, I didn't want to necessarily really throw the CoCo 3 across the room, but I just kind of pushed it away, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to work on this, and so I basically just didn't even look at the project for well as 6 months, or a little less than 6 months, because that's how long it was between CoCo Fest and Tandy Assembly. And so I decided I must be not intelligent enough to do a gimme, to hook into the gimme. So I thought, you know what, maybe I'll try to do maybe I'll try to reduce my scope and just do a MMU for the CoCo 1 and 2. I'd popped open my CoCo 1 and realized that it had a socketed CPU. So I thought, well, I'll try something there. Maybe I can at least figure out how to do the MMU there. And so I built a board and I put it together, and just in no time at all, I had it working. And I'm thinking, well, this is easy. It should be just as easy on the CoCo 3. And so that's when I decided I'd go back to the project and get it working. And still it took me a couple days to figure out what was really going on. And again, like Curtis says, it was something crazy stupid. It was just, you look at it for a while and you just don't see the obvious stuff.
Yeah.
Forest for the trees thing.
That's right.
Ease of use. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we have Ron. Did you want to show some stuff off?
Yeah, but we haven't had a commercial in.
I'm not worried about commercial. This is a special episode. I'll put commercials in for the podcast, so I'm not worried about that. I didn't want this show to go super duper long today. We've now just hit 2 hours or so I would like to wrap it up in a little bit, but I want to hit Ron's garage, and I want to show off Simon's demo. If you still have time for that, Simon.
I'm fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you still wanted to show us something, Ron, because if you want, we'll go ahead and we'll jump in and we'll do a little Ron's garage segment, and then we'll look at Simon's demo. If that works for you.
Yep.
All right, so let me get this going here. Let's get the full professional introduction here going. So hold on just a second here. All right, everybody, sit back and enjoy the soothing sounds of Ron's garage. Anyways, we're going to take a look at Ron's garage, a peek into the past, featuring the retro computing collection of Ron Delvaux. Take it away, Ron.
All right.
How do you like that announcer? It's not bad, right? He's sober today. It's hard to get this guy.
We're on battery.
All right.
See how it goes. I don't know right here if you can see. This is the Tandy 2000 motherboard. Let's see. I guess I'll put it over here.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Can you see it?
Right now I see your beard. Okay, hold on. Wait a second. I see some chips. We see some chips. I see chips. Yep. Okay, we're seeing it. Yep. I see chips. I see what looks like a CPU or heatsink or something in there. A chipset. Yeah, that looks like the CPU in the dead center there.
I'm wondering if that's it.
Yeah, it looks like a CPU.
That'd be the 8186 then, if it is?
Yeah. Yep. 8186.
Look at all the memory.
On the daughter card.
The good old days of those RAM chips. Yeah.
Yep. There's a couple of ROMs in there too.
Now, why is the motherboard out? Is this machine non-functional at the moment, or are you just showing us?
Yeah, took it all apart so we could show it.
Okay, and we did see one of these at the assembly. These are fairly uncommon machines, right?
Here's the I don't know. Can you see this?
Yeah, I see the screen. Yeah.
It's a boot up of a real one.
Okay.
You mean an operational
I turned it on about 10 seconds before the monitor comes.
Here you go. It's coming up. Yeah.
It's a high resolution monitor.
Yeah, it is.
It says color monitor CM. MS-DOS version 2.1101.
211.
That's just to show it works. I don't have a keyboard hooked up to it. So next thing is I got a Tandy 1000 over here. With DeskMate.
DeskMate, yes.
Hey.
Software that changed the industry.
And it has a couple of joysticks plugged in.
Yeah, the CoCo joysticks, yeah. I remember the old coily phone keyboard cable.
And then Over here we have Tandy 1200 HD.
Amber. That's the XT compatible, huh? Look at that with the hard drive inside it. Look at that amber screen.
Called QDOS 3 running on it.
Oh, wow.
I have a fan that's making a lot of noise, so I'm going to turn it off.
That amber screen really brings back memories.
Yeah, I used to run my Hercules card on that.
Yeah.
Sharp and clear.
It is. It's super sharp. Yeah. This was like the high end because, when monochrome and green screens were commonplace, the amber screen was one that was supposed to look a little sharper and have a little bit less eye strain on it. And it was just
full height drive.
Yeah, look at that. That is nice. That is a gorgeous machine.
And
IBM for my professional programming job.
Who was just saying that? Sorry.
Bob's here.
Okay. That's a neat machine.
We have a Model 1.
Yeah, and you had just put an ad. You put an ad in a few of the Facebook groups showing the full page Radio Shack ad of that XT system, and how Tandy was saying it's compatible with the PC XT. Yeah. Yeah, I love that Model 1. That looks good.
I have a memory upgrade module I want to try for it sometime. It has, I think it brings it to 48K.
And
then next we have a Model 3.
This is like a little mini Tandy assembly in Ron's garage here. Yeah.
I don't know how well you can see it, but...
Yeah, we can see it.
Trying to look from the top. Anyways, it works perfectly. It has... you can hear the drive wearing.
Does it run OS 9?
Yes, it does. And it has ease of use.
Ease of use.
And here I have a 64K Model 4.
Oh, sexy! Look at that thing.
That's when they changed from gray to white.
You have a green.
Green screen. Yeah, I kind of like. I'm kind of nostalgic for the black and white screens on some of the earlier TRS-80s.
Well, I do have one over here that's 128K, and it has a black and white screen.
Who could ever need that much memory? Wow. Yeah, I like. That's nice. That's a nice looking machine. Looks really clean too.
Yep, it is. It's in great shape. And then over here, I have a Model 4P.
Nice. That's what I saw the Tris bid on. Yeah, that's a neat looking machine. And that one's a green.
That little slot was cool.
Almost like it has a pseudo Tandy 1000 keyboard to it, looking thing there.
It has 2 half-height drives in it.
Neat.
Now, can you get that through TSA?
Anyways, then I have this little baby over here.
Neat.
What's up?
That's neat.
200 or?
It's a Tandy 1100 FD floppy drive.
Oh, so that's one of the PC DOS compatible ones, right?
Yeah, it's just a little bitty thing.
That's neat.
Open it now, so I only have one hand.
Yeah, that's neat.
This is the 2000 over here. That's all taken apart. And the drives in it are they're high density.
Okay.
700K, 700 something K. There's 2 of them that go in it. When you open the case on a 200, on a 2000, there's no motherboard showing. The motherboard fits underneath.
Huh.
Let's see if I can show.
Yeah, on the 2000, they were actually called quad density. They were made by Mitsubishi.
Oh, quad density, he says, Ron.
Oh, okay. If you can see, there's a date under there. 8/16/84.
Oh, wow.
And I got this PC for $5 as is.
Wow.
See that?
A Model 2000 for $5.
Yeah, that was back in the day.
Wow.
Anyway, that's about it, guys. We have all these machines up and running.
It's Tandy Assembly all over again.
Yeah.
We've just eased the blues a little bit.
Full of stuff.
Yeah, Tandy Assembly Arizona version.
Yeah, yeah. You never cease to amaze.
If we have it out here, I could have half the place populated with computers.
We'll just have it at your garage. What are we talking about?
Yeah, we'll have Ron's.
Don't even have to rent a venue. Just
Ron's Garage Fest.
Head on over for Ron and a barbecue.
Bring the cold beer.
If I go to Ron's house, I'm going to bring a U-Haul.
Yeah, right. Well, Richard showed us. Oh, what else we got here? Hold on, just a second. What is that, Ron?
This is the insides of a Tandy 1200.
Oh wow! Look at those cards, ISO slots, long cards. Oh man, relics from days gone past. Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, it's got a Seagate drive in it.
Ah, wow. It's amazing that these old hard drives still spin up, because the new hard drive, you're lucky the thing lasts 3 years. And you got these 30-year-old hard drives that still boot up.
This machine here doesn't boot up because I think the power supply is bad, but hard drive works and everything else works in it.
Neat.
Is that MFM or an RLL hard drive?
All right, that's it.
Hey, Ron, I don't know if you heard the question, but Simon was asking, guys. Is that MFM or RLL on that hard drive?
MFM.
MFM.
Okay. Yeah, I got one of those in my 1000 TX I got for cheap on eBay.
Neat.
Works great.
The first 1100 HD or 1200 HD is a mini scribe 10 gigabyte, not megabyte.
Neat. When we were heading towards the lobby, I think it was Sunday night, Richard says, yeah, take a peek into here and look at my version of Ron's Garage. And Richard had so much stuff in his hotel room. He had some Model 3s in there. He just had just tons of stuff in his hotel room. And of course, Mike Brandt, who, I think he will appear on an episode of Hoarders at one point in time. But Mike saw his some of his screens. What was that? The new inbox, the NEC screens that are backwards compatible with the 15.
Yeah, the NEC 71Vs.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, you got one of those? I'll take one of those. So we're like on our way to the lobby, and he stops by Richard's room and says, okay, well, I got to buy one more thing.
Yeah, my biggest problem is I didn't anticipate the upgrade table would take so much space, and I only had one table, so I didn't have enough room to display anything. So
yeah.
So at CoCo Fest, I'm going to get 3 tables. So
oh wow.
Prepared.
Holy crap. Get your tables and get them early before Richard takes them all, people.
Where he takes over the whole hall.
Yeah. John, you still there? John Linville? I see his picture. Or maybe somebody else might be able to answer this too. If anybody's been to a VCF, and has anybody been to one of those and tried to get a table, and what are the costs compared to like some of the bigger events?
I've been to. I exhibit at VCF.
Okay.
So which VCF?
Well, I don't know any of them. I've never been to any. So,
Where's
but
John
I mean, compared to like,
what?
Any of them, like so. Let's say VCF Midwest, which is close to Chicago, right? Or is
so
in
Midwest.
Isn't it extra free?
Yeah, they are. The admission and the tables are free.
Oh, okay. Well, that's affordable.
Yeah, but VCF East, which is in New Jersey, that one has a cost. I think it's seems like it's $30 or $50 a table.
Oh, that's not terrible. I was thinking that CoCo Fest was really cheap. It was $20 or $30. Tandy Assembly was like $30. So those table prices were very affordable. I was just wondering if some of the bigger events, you're looking at getting into $100 to $150 for a table or more. I would imagine that's possible on a bigger show, but I don't have any frame of reference for that.
I'm not aware of a show that costs that much. I think there's other shows, maybe like some of the Atari shows or whatnot. Maybe they have stuff that's expensive like that. But like today is a TI show in Chicago, and I don't think the tables cost anything for that either.
Oh wow, yeah. Because somewhere even between $20 and $50 for a table, if you're an exhibitor, that's reasonable. That's CoCo Fest has always been pretty cheap these past couple of years I was there, and Tandy Assembly was very reasonable too. So, What? So at some point in time now, though, it's like, well, these tables, this becomes prime real estate. There's only so many tables you can squeeze into the event now. Do we now have to start picking and choosing who we're going to give a table to, and is it more important to give a table to a different class of exhibit versus the arts and crafts table? Or, I mean, these hard choices need to be made yet, or we find that this may come at some point in time?
I don't know about the CoCo stuff, but on VCM and Midwest show for VCF, they've moved to a larger venue than CoCoFest. So CoCoFest is at the Lombard, I forget, the Heron Point or whatever, but they moved to Elk Grove Village, and they've completely filled that bigger venue, and that means it's very well attended. It's great. I mean, it's a great problem to have, but you're right. They have, for 2 years now in a row, they've ran out of space probably a month or two, maybe even 2.5 months prior to the event. And, you do have to need to pick and choose, right? You want to make sure that in a VCS show, you want to make sure that you don't have like all of CoCoFest's CoCos there and nothing from any of the other lines, right?
Right.
It's because you want it to be kind of all encompassing, just like Tandy Assembly wanted a mix of CoCo and like non-CoCo machines. And the other one is anymore, people are like, for instance, even in the CoCo space, if somebody was to come with a CP 1400 and a bunch of UK or non-American dragons, they probably will, the people who set up the show probably will want to give that preference over just a bank of CoCo 3s. I mean, it's not that CoCo 3s are bad, but they're something we see all the time, whereas the CP 1400 or the non-US dragons are extremely rare to be seen in the United States.
Sure.
Yeah, and then you've also got people like you that would be doing upgrades and stuff I'd figured that would want to be fairly high up on the list too, because people are getting stuff done at your table. It's not just for showing off.
Yeah.
Well, and that's true. And I know Midwest, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but like a couple years ago when they first moved to the new venue, they were going to have it, I remember it was like September 20th or 10th or whatever. And I said, Jason Timmons, who runs the show, I said, I can't go. My son's heading off to college, and this will be the first time, and we got to help him move in, and this is a big traumatic time for the family, and so I got to be there, and it's that weekend. And so he was like, well, we'll just move the show because we need to have, we want to have the vendors. We want to have there's only so many vendors that come, and we want to make sure we accommodate the vendors because that's a big deal.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I didn't ask him to do that, but I'm like, well, if it's, it's real important that you make sure that you have the vendors represented, then, and you really want me there, then yeah, I can't make it this weekend, but I can go the weekend before or after. And so
that's cool.
He's like, well, we'll move it. So I think the vendors get a little bit of a buy, like you wouldn't want to have a CoCoFest without Marlette there, right? You wouldn't want to have that wall of Cloud9.
Right.
So there's always somebody that kind of gets a buy, and then everybody else kind of needs to fight for tables.
Sure.
I think it's cool though that it's a problem to have, because I remember the first CoCoFest I went to was probably 2014 or 2015, and there were a number of tables that were set up down in Heron Point that didn't have anybody exhibiting in them. I just sat down and kind of used my computer right there, and I don't think that was possible last year or this year. I think all the tables were used.
Yeah, so I know John just came in. So yeah, I was asking a question, John, about like table prices at different events, and I don't know if you had any experience on that.
No, I mean, not really. I've exhibited at VCF East, VCF Southeast, and of course CoCoFest. I don't remember huge differences in prices.
Okay.
They're all kind of in incomparable ranges, and like you said, sometimes you get an event that's free or whatever, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well that's good. And I wasn't sure. I just figured it seemed like we were getting a really good deal, and we are. I mean, CoCoFest and Tandy Assembly was very affordable to have an exhibit table, and I just wasn't curious if that was across the board. It seems like so far it kind of is, which is good. It's good to know, because if you don't have these exhibitors here, that's kind of part of the event, So it's
some of the organizers are would have preferred that we do it more like VCF Midwest, but
as far as what, the higher price or
being free.
Okay.
See, I'm not a fan of that at all. I've told Jason a long time. People need to understand how the VCF show got to be free in the first place, right? because the VCF show didn't used to be the VCF show. It used to be a Commodore show, and it still is. You always see it combined. It's called the Emergency Commodore Computer whatever, ECCC. I don't know what it stands for. And Jason Compton set it up, and he set it up because the Commodore group in Chicago that had the show just they weren't going to have another one. And so Jason's like, but I used that as an opportunity, like you guys all said earlier. I use that as an opportunity to come and see all my friends who are kind of far-flung across the United States. This is a time where we can get together and chit-chat about things, just to have fun times. So he wanted to just have that, and so he just rented the venue at Heron Point himself, and at the time it was really cheap. And then over the last few years, VCF was originally, I think, in Indianapolis or something, and it didn't really... It just kind of fizzled out, and so Jason Timmons said, man, it sure would be nice to have a collective computer show in the Chicago area, and so they kind of co-located with VCF. Well, I think Jason was like, hey, this idea Jason Compton has is real nice, where nobody pays anything, so like like John Linville was saying earlier, people pay money, then they feel like they have a right to complain about what's going on at the show. So Jason Compton felt if I did it for free, then nobody can complain because they didn't pay squat to get here, right? And that's what he said, right? So, but the key is since that time, the truth kind of has changed because Heron Point started charging more for their venue.
Sure.
And then the ECC, or not ECC, but the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest got too big to run at the Heron Point anyway, and they needed to find a new venue. Well, this other venue in Elk Grove is a nice venue, but it costs money. And so every year they're kind of relying on donations and whatnot, and I really don't, I mean, it's great, and I'm happy about that, but I think the exhibitors who sit down and do a table would easily pay $20 or $30 for the privilege of having a table. And as you said, Steve, at some point you're going to have to put some price on that, or else people will reserve a table and not really do anything with it.
Yeah.
They'll say, hey, I want a table, but then they just put nothing at the table. And you're like, but that table could have shown off a Russian CoCo clone, or it could have, whatever. So I think I would not be in favor of doing free shows just because I think having the show and having a price tag attached to the table gives people if it's only just a nominal amount, at least it's well, crap, I paid some money for this, and so if I don't use this table, then I just wasted that money. So I need to get my button gear and get my exhibit done and get to the show, right? So puts a focus on there. The other thing I would say is I think what you're thinking, Steve, is there was a show earlier this year called some sort of ColecoVision show or whatnot, which was handled very poorly and whatnot. I think those booths were like $200 or $300 a seat, right?
Yeah.
It was more like a professional venue, and it was a total bust. And people said, it would be better to have a kind of homegrown, maybe it looks a little amateurish on the outside show, like some of the shows that we're talking about, and have it be nominal prices and people getting together and having a great time, as opposed to this really slick, commercially produced show with $200 tables and nobody shows up.
Right.
No.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why that too was how they kind of trashed the community and just went after all of the fan sites and things like that, and it did the opposite of what you should do in a community type event.
Yeah,
but
shot themselves in the foot, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was their high prices on the show was one of many problems.
Yeah, I felt bad watching the videos for those vendors because they're just sitting there hating life, and it costs them money to be there. Not only the $200 for the table, but whatever it costs to travel there and pack up all your stuff, and that had to be is horrible.
I spent hours consoling Sophie Reynolds. It was terrible.
We had just recently been joined by John Strong of Strongware. How are you, John? We're at the tail end of the show.
Yeah, hanging in there. Just,
Good. I'm going to get ready to fire up Simon's demo here. I need to see where I saved Simon's disc. I downloaded your disc. Okay, it's called Assembly Disc. So we're going to show off Simon Jonassen's Tandy Assembly demo. Now, I have not put my CoCo back together, so I'm going to be running this on XRoar, which is Ciaran's emulator. One of the greatest emulators currently in development for the color computer and dedicated solely to the color computer. So we're going to take a look at Simon's demo here real quick. Let me
make sure you use NTSC. because otherwise the timing's wrong.
Okay.
I need to do a PAL version for the UK guys.
Mm-hmm. So the machine right now is Tandy CoCo NTSC. Yes. Okay. So I just loader bin.
Oh, what disc have you got? You've got the wrong disc.
Whatever you sent me in Facebook earlier, I thought maybe I pulled the wrong one. Wasn't it called assembly.disc?
Wait. Let me have a look. Just one moment. Yeah, that you can try it.
Okay, the one you sent me in the Facebook message was called. Well, we'll find out here in just a second, huh?
Yeah, you'll find out fast enough.
Let's see.
I've got another version of that.
The only thing you're missing here, Simon, is sending out greetings to the 32-bit kings or something like that.
That's why you should have had the other version.
Nice. I like the fire. Is this the end of the demo or something else coming up?
Hold on.
Okay. And by the way, I had muted Skype before because I was getting some feedback.
Control the horizontal, you control the vertical.
Yeah.
Control off.
That's getting a little loud in my ears. I'm going to turn it down for a second.
Just reset it. Control off.
So I couldn't hear. Was that the end of the demo?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. I thought something else was going to happen. All right.
I didn't have time. Something should have happened, but I didn't have time.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. That's cool, Simon. Excellent. And so what you said in the beginning there with the nice fancy fonts and stuff. This is your first full demo, and you said like 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've done all these parts before, but I've never actually put them into one big piece, which was my intention all along. And I've never really done a mega demo since the C64, which is over 20 years ago. So
neat. Well, I'm glad we got to see it. We've been seeing bits and pieces of it as you've been teasing it on Facebook with little clips, and then we got to see it at Tandy Assembly, and it's kind of cool that you made that kind of the Tandy demo, and it was very cool. I like that. Good job, mate.
Thank you.
Now, Simon, you mentioned that you didn't quite finish it because you didn't have time. Do you still plan to add more to it and re-release it in your quote-unquote full version, or are you pretty well done with this and on to the next project?
Well, actually, Steve, you got the wrong disc, because I done a release version today.
Okay, well, send me another one, because that's what I got from you on Facebook, dude.
But I need to work on the end part, because the television shouldn't carry on forever. It should actually it should carry on for a little bit and then flicker an alien head and something like we're controlling transmission, and then just reset your machine.
Oh, neat. Very cool.
So, I'm working on doing a totally wicked CoCo 3 demo instead. So,
that'll be cool to see.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, we knocked the CoCo 2 for 6, so we might as well knock the CoCo 3 for 6 as well.
Right. And your partner in crime is here, Paul, and he did a little demo with the color palette flipping thing that said "Hi, Simon." Did you see that one he put out there?
Yeah, because I was actually talking to him about splitting the screen, or actually changing colors on a scan line or whatever. And once he finally got what I was talking about, because we talked about it for a certain amount of time, once he finally got what I was talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. So he done it, and he just, here you go. Here's a greeting to my mentor.
That's very cool.
We got some crazy ideas going on with that too, but we can discuss those at a later time.
Yes.
Well, this is the world of mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Crazy ideas are some of the best ideas out there.
Well, it has a lot to do with like making a behind the car type of racing game.
Very cool.
Yeah, we're just kind of brainstorming on that right now. That's it.
Yeah.
That's an outrun type thingy.
Neat.
Abusing hardware for not having to process as much.
Well, David Ladd gets a lot of abuse, so it's nice to take some of that off of him and put it on the hardware for a change. So. Very good. So, John Strong, you were attending a family wedding during Tandy Assembly, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and despite the best intentions, there was no chance of getting them to reschedule that wedding by any chance, right? So.
No, and she had a great wedding.
That's great.
And thank you, John, and everybody who put on the Tandy Assembly. I missed it, but thanks for supporting the community.
Definitely. And John T. Robbs, you've been pretty quiet. You still there, John?
Yep, I'm good.
All right. And so did you get a chance to catch any of the live stream or any of the replays?
No, not yet. I spent the last week or so in Mexico.
Okay.
That's why I missed Tandy Assembly, and I will definitely plan to be there next year.
Excellent. You didn't get Montezuma's Revenge or anything from Mexico, did you?
No, I just tripped on the way out of the hotel and face planted on the concrete.
Ouch. We don't want to do that.
That explains the lack of video.
So, John, we've started brainstorming, and we're not going to reveal too much, but just the general topic, which we can talk about. We've been teasing and toying with the idea of some type of Florida For right now, we'll call it the Florida Gathering, right? Because there's got to be at least a half a dozen CoConuts in the state of Florida. So, to organize something on the scale of Tandy Assembly, it's a pretty big project. But we should try for a weekend to get some Florida folks together. But I'm thinking besides just that, we might have the potential to make a bigger event at some point in time, and maybe have a reason to draw some people down here to the Sunshine State. But what are your thoughts on getting some Florida CoConuts together? I'm sorry?
I would love to help out with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we need, now the calendar is going to become crowded because whatever we're going to do, you got to try to pace it between, CoCo Fest and Tandy Assembly and things like that. But if it's just us Florida folks, we could work it out. But I would love to see at least an annual or semi-annual event of a slightly larger scale in Florida because it's a beautiful spot. And you do it in Orlando, it's halfway through the state. There's international airports. There's attractions for the families to do. Let the wife and kids go to Disney World while we geek out, things like that. So I think the potential is there. It's we got to do a dry run on just get the band together type thing. But it might be neat to have another little retro gathering. I don't know if Florida's big enough to support a CoCo only event. Or not. I guess we'll have to put some feelers out for that. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more retro generic to have a little bit bigger appeal, but we'll see. I know we talked about this over dinner, right? When we were at the German restaurant after CoCo Fest, we were talking about doing some type of Florida gathering. There's a handful of us here, so.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're gonna cut this episode short. We're not going to be 3 or 4 hours this week. We'll cut it in half. And I think we did all the important stuff. We talked about Tandy Assembly, and Tandy Assembly was awesome. This was the next best thing to be in there is this getting together with our kindred spirits and talking about what we love, this retro hobby. And it was a good time. Thank you, John Linville, for being here too, and for Myro and Neil Brookins for stopping by. Some of our founders of the event. Oh, look at Curtis. Let's zoom in on this. Curtis has got not one but 2 CoCoTALK mugs. He's got the white and the metal finish. What do you think of the mugs? They're pretty nice, huh, Curtis?
Yeah, they are pretty good here. They actually kept my coffee warm throughout the whole show. It's long-winded as you are, so it works pretty good.
Shots fired. Shots have been fired.
But well deserved.
I was just going to say that was on behalf of Dave. So.
And so, I'm wearing my CoCoTALK shirt, my gray one. I did get the royal blue one because it looked so good. I saw that Mark Overholser had one, and then Grant got one. I tell you, it was nice. It was nice seeing CoConut and CoCoTALK shirts at the Tandy Assembly. It was nice seeing our little machine represented. So at least half of the CoCo folks there were wearing a CoCo T-shirt, so that was pretty cool to see. And speaking of T-shirts, we have George Phillips here wearing the official Tandy Assembly shirt, which is a fine-looking shirt too. I'm thinking of keeping mine unwashed and maybe putting it in a frame or something like that because I've got like the CoCo Crew T-shirt I put in a frame. I've got John Strong's Bomb. I get the names Bomb Squad. Too many bomb games right now. So very cool stuff.
There are still shirts available if you want one.
Okay.
You probably should contact I guess either Mike Rowen or Neil Blanchard.
Okay.
Or contact me and I'll pass you along.
There you go. So the Tandy Assembly shirts are available and it looked like they were in a variety of sizes. So an interesting little milestone happened to our little women's talk show, also known as The View. But we reached 2,000 downloads in podcast land. We've reached we're closer to 2,200 right now downloads, which is pretty cool for being maybe 2.5 months old in the podcasting arena. So that's a nice little milestone to reach these nice little numbers here of 2,100 some odd downloads. So I want to thank everybody who's been listening to us, and I want to apologize for all of the techno babble that goes on for hours. But there are little tiny nuggets of useful and entertainment pieces of stuff in randomly scattered through this 4-hour show. So but that was kind of cool. It was definitely a great event, Tandy Assembly. And so for those of you who are watching, I haven't couldn't run any commercials, so I'll try to squeeze them all into one commercial right now. So if you want to find out about the color computer, go to imacoconut.com, imacoconut.com for all your color computer needs. If you want to get one of these cool t-shirts or coffee mugs or that we've been talking about, our retro swag shop is 8bit256.com. To find out more about Tandy Assembly, you can go to tandyassembly.com. To find out more about the CoCo Crew podcast, you can go to cococrew.org. I don't know, anything else we need to plug here? Anybody want to shout anything out before we go? And I almost feel like we need to spend a minute with Nick Marentes. Nick, we haven't really got a chance to talk to you too much.
I'm still here. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just changed my microphone, so I don't know if it works. Well, all I got to say is ease of use.
Ease of use.
I thought you were going to say ease of moving.
Yeah. That's not easy, no. We're still in the process of moving house, and the house we're at the moment is going to be on auction in about 2 weeks. So a lot happening in the next 2 months.
Okay. And you got a chance to catch some of the live streaming?
Yeah, I watched some of that, and that was good. That was really good, and I liked the stream of the podcast talk you did, the one where you were hosting the talk. That was
the round table. Yeah, I thought that was good too. Yeah, I thought that was good to get everybody together.
I want to say something here about CoCo TV because Nick was on one of the featured things on there, and it was really interesting to see him talk.
Is this the thing on Roku?
Yeah.
I have to figure this thing out. I know that's floating around. I need to reach out and.
They have a CoCo episode on there now.
Okay,
who's doing that?
Taylor.
So Roger Taylor's son, is he the one who's doing it? So
yep.
I don't know all the information. I need to find out more. I was told about this by one of my friends too, because he watches a podcast for ham radio, and he's saying that these guys not only do a podcast, but they also have something on Roku. So I looked into it, and I actually logged in, and I created I have an account. But as soon as I started looking at what they want as far as the formatting of their feeds and things like that, it was so technically overwhelming. I just did not understand a single thing about it. So I definitely like to pick Roger Taylor's brain to see how he's tapping into that, because that'd be kind of cool to be on one of these little streaming set-top boxes, I mean, obviously...
he does have a CoCoTALK on there.
He has what, this show?
The first one, I think, yeah.
Oh yeah, I need to figure out how he's doing that, and now we need to talk about licensing rights too, because
I think you also have to find out whether it's possible to live stream to it, because we could be a live channel on Roku.
Yeah, too, so. That would be cool. Yeah. I'm already starting to feel I feel violated now, and maybe this is what David Ladd feels like. I don't know. So
I want to say though that Nick was really good when he. Took command of, I think it was a CoCo Fest I watched.
And that might have been Penn Fest 2000? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. He did really well.
All right.
Neat. So, yeah, I need to see that too. Very cool. Very cool. So 60 says if we're gonna blatantly plug something, we need to plug Dungeons, which is 60's latest port to the CoCo from a BBC micro game. Yeah, and I am overdue to do a review on that, so hopefully 60 and I can get together and do that in the near future. imacoconut.com is your one-stop shop for all your color computer needs. And you can reach all things CoCoTALK at cocotalk.live. Make sure you send us some feedback. Give us some suggestions for future shows. Give us some new ways we can pick on David Ladd. We're looking forward to all this type of information. And it's been a good show. So for those of us who are still on the call, I want to thank you all with Ron Delvaux and Richard Lorbieski, Grant Leighty, John Linville, Simon Jonassen, Nick Marentes, Retro Innovations, Jim Brain, Mark Overholser, L. Curtis Boyle, Karen Anscomb, John T. Robs, David Floppy Ladd, George Phillips, and John Strong. And in the live chat, we've had Nick Marotta has been here, Richard Lorbieski, GPK, GP2K00 was here. Who else was in the live chat? Nick Marota, I think I said that. Fiskap was here. Paul Fiscarelli was in the live chat. Norlander was in the live chat. Fedor Stamen stopped by for a minute. Hey, Fedor. And so, so for all of you who are in the live chat, we got 16 people watching us now. Thanks for sticking in here for this whole time. I think we were pretty easy on David this time, right? So his Sir ship, his night ship is still holding up good from being on the podcast. We got at least probably 2 more episodes where we'll be nice to him before we go back to our old ways. Unless he appears on another show and continues to elevate his status, and then. But yeah, so Sir David Ladd has been with us. Thank you all for being here. And so what's next? Well, the next thing I guess for us would be CoCo Fest, 6 months down the road, give or take. Yeah. Another episode of the CoCo Crew podcast will be out in November, hopefully. Or has October? Have we heard October's CoCo? I'm losing track, dude. Is there a new CoCo Crew podcast coming out this month, John Linville?
Should be later in October.
Later in October. Okay, yeah. The time is flying. Okay, so we do have something else to look forward to this month. We have another CoCo Crew podcast to look forward to this month. So you gotta count these little blessings and these little things that we have to look forward to. So we have another CoCo Crew to look forward to this month. There'll be more CoCoTALK in the future. I'm hoping to get more content out on my my new YouTube channel, the I'm a Coconut YouTube channel, and
we're still hoping for David Ladd to lead the Harvey Weinstein-like expose on the CoCo world.
Oh, God. I don't even know what that is.
We were going to be apolitical, weren't we?
It's not politics.
That's not politics, no.
It's sex.
It's that drunken bar girl that you guys saw at the assembly.
Okay. Yeah, and George, thanks for being here. Hopefully this wasn't too painful listening to us talk about a non-TRS-80 machine.
I survived.
You survived. All right. That's good. And hopefully we have not lost any cred with your other Tris friends and, and think you're switching to the dark side or anything like that. So
now we just have to do a demo of a network controller with all those computers combined.
Yeah. So I think I've mentioned this on this show before, but I'll mention it now because it's a kind of a tie-in for George being here too. But the next talk show that I want to unveil is going to be a talk show that's going to be called Retro Talk. That'll be on the OG channel. So this is streaming on my I'm a Coconut YouTube channel, but my original channel that was called the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh, I'm going to do a talk show there in the near future that'll be called Retro Talk. That'll be a little bit more broad spectrum, so we can talk about the Apple computers and the Atari computers and the CoCo, and all you guys are welcome. But I'm very impressed and I'm very flattered that we're getting roughly 1,000 views and 1,000 downloads a month just on the CoCo, and so that says a lot. And we're pretty niche and we're pretty obscure. So if there's that much appeal for this one machine, I'm hoping that a broader spectrum retro show will bring more people on who want to speak and hopefully more people who want to watch too. So coming soon to a YouTube channel near you will be another live talk show called Retro Talk. So if you hadn't heard it before, you heard it here, folks. And
quick question on Retro Talk: is that exclusively for old computers, or is that for computers and video consoles?
Everything.
Video game consoles.
Yeah. All things retro: computers, video games, arcade machines, you name it. Okay. So so I'm hoping to. I know it's going to start small, like everything else, but maybe once a week we'll maybe have one person speak or one topic, and we'll kind of take it from there. What's Mark holding up there? Mark's got a slide rule. Is that a retro computer? Okay. All right.
Next, he'll bring his abacus out.
Okay.
That's what took us to the moon.
Well, it's got to be something you can rely on. You can't go wrong with science.
It's not like Skype or anything,
It says beautiful bamboo Keffel and Esser. Copyright 1947, probably from the 50s, be my guess.
Wow. Very nice. Very nice. So yeah, coming soon will be Retro Talk, and then later on that'll be followed by a show that will be called Gaming Talk, where we'll talk about modern games on the Xbox and PlayStation and PCs, and that'll be down the road. I don't want to just start 4 shows at once and have them all be train wrecks. I'm still working on my first train wreck here, which is CoCoTALK, so I need to kind of finally control these train wrecks, and so the next train wreck will be Retro Talk coming soon, and so it might be nice to have kick that off with something good, just talking about something really cool as our kind of inaugural episode. So we'll see how that goes, and you guys are welcome, and maybe not David Ladd, but the rest of you. All right, guys.
Period is over.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up episode 29 of CoCoTALK, the Tandy Assembly wrap-up show. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, everybody who watched. And, Dungeons. We got to play Dungeons. We will get Dungeons. We'll get a review of Dungeons. We'll get Ciaran to talk about Dungeons. I'm still planning to do this. I want to have a topic for CoCoTALK that's going to be the British invasion. And I'd like to get as many of our UK brethren on that one, so we can talk about X-Roar. We can talk about Dungeons. We can talk about some of Ciaran's projects. Love to get Steve Bamford, Bosco on here, and anybody else.
MMC.
Dragon stuff. So I do want to do a special episode of CoCoTALK that we're going to call the British Invasion, and we'll dedicate it to all the UK projects that are going on.
Will there be Beatles music?
Well, it would probably get flagged with the copyright, so maybe we'll get David to sing them for us, and that way.
Especially if it's Beatles music.
We'll get Curtis to play guitar and David Ladd to sing, and that might just get her done right there.
And your podcast streams go down to 0. Sounds good.
I was going to say, you get me singing, you're going to be regretting it.
Well, I have a cocoa fever, and the only way to fix it.
And Grant Leighty, thanks for your newbie question of the week. And we did not we didn't start World War III. I'm sorry, Simon. What was that?
I could wear this.
Okay, it looks like a little drink. What is that? It's kind of a kilt. Okay, you could wear that kilt. You could you could wear the kilt, and depending on what neighborhood, you might get kilt when you wear it.
Well, actually, mix the kilt and Steve's high heels he was wearing.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I'm still in pain from. I did a charity event this morning. I had to walk in high heels. So yeah. Good
charity event.
Yeah. Well, it was a ball anyway. So
you enjoyed it. You enjoyed it, didn't you?
All right, guys, we're gonna end this misery. So we've beat this one to death, and we're gonna call it. Time of death is now 2 hours and 40 minutes. Thank you for watching CoCoTALK. We will see you guys next week. Until then, stay retro, people, and bye bye.
Later, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.